I know I'm gonna go blah blah because I'm like excited.
Good, good.
But no, it's not that big of a deal, really. It's just because I was thinking, because as we're going through a lot of these nakshatras and dealing with the ocean of milk for a while, and we start getting this when we get to the sun represents really this purity. And so it must represent at least some of those things that were coming out of the ocean of milk, right? That's kind of what they were trying to get the cream to rise to the top. And we get that in some other places, but I was just wondering, anyways, it was just one of those foolish things because there's such a list of devis or goddesses that came out of the ocean. Maybe it's just them that come out. Um, Anyways, it just reminds me of the Vishvadevas kind of lists that we're dealing with. So, anyways, it was just a small thing, something we're going to keep in mind and kind of as we look at it, I guess, since I didn't have time to go back and and see. But there is sort of those kind of themes coming out of there. But
It
we'll
does make sense, but also the moon, right? Because the Amrita also is related to Soma, that is related like to the moon somehow.
yeah,
Maybe in a sense, a lot of the planets' energies are coming out of there, of like the cosmic ocean somehow.
yeah. Well, that's when we think of the ocean or something, that's really what we're getting at, and this sense of space that's starting to sort of come about now in these higher nakshatras. And so there is that, anyways, that expansion, you could say at least. So
Yeah.
namaste, Emmett. You'll get to hear what we were talking about earlier, or it'll probably come up. We'll be debating the merits of my bright idea as we go along, I'm sure. So so we're up to Uttara Ashadha now. This is my Venus is an Uttara Ashadha. Do you guys have placements? Emmett, I think you have something in Uttara Ashadha, right?
I'm gonna check right now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, let's just I'll pull your guys' charts up here. There we go.
Yeah, my Mercury's there actually. Mercury's definitely one of my money placements. So yeah, I'm curious to find out.
Okay, there we go. I guess we got something there. Anyways, so let's I'll share this screen. I'm already recording on my end, Emmett, just so you know you didn't hear that. There we go. Well, get rid of that for now. There we go. And Uttara Ashadha. So Uttara Ashadha, we're coming to the last part of Sagittarius and going into Capricorn here. This is this is kind of interesting because we're moving from the kind of from the theoretical to the actual in a certain sense. We're moving from that dharma to the karma. This is really what's kind of happening here. And so what sort of I think happened in Uttara Ashadha is you've got now the sort of the best ideas that you'll get out of Sagittarius. There's a little bit in Sagittarius. It might be a little bit like if we think of Aries or we think of the other fire signs, right? We start off with this very raw, uncontrollable energy of Ketu and the first part, and that sort of moves into this Venus seeking the balance, seeking the harmony, and there, and then we get to the sun. We get this sense of certainty. We get this sense of the top of the fire, maybe peak of the fire sign, but it's like things are sort of coming together, I guess you could say. And what we had coming together in the first in Aries, for example, is just sort of this one thing that comes into two and sort of goes out. And we get into the middle part of Leo, and it's these two things that are being brought in together. When we get into the Sagittarius, what's coming together is you've got this mula that's this big cloud of everything. And slowly, it's almost being formed together until we get to Uttara Ashadha, where you get these suns, you get this source of power, you kind of get the essence, you get the spirit of all of that, in a sense. And so now it's like, now we're getting somewhere. Right, we get in, and it moves into Capricorn that way. So this is ruled by the sun. That's it's a universal star. We talk about that a lot when we talk about Sagittarius, that broad global perspective. I'm not sure if universal, part of me thinks it's maybe not quite the right translation. I think the global star might almost be a better translation for it, because we don't get to the universe until we get sort of into the ground universal ocean up in Pisces. But anyways, here we are. So it's the later victory, wins the final battle, makes the winning choice. This is there's a bit of that gambling that comes in here. These people, oftentimes they have to make a lot of big decisions. These are people that have to choose. We get into the the elephant tusk and the planks of the bed. We'll talk about them a little bit later too, but the elephant tusk, I remember quite a few years ago, I was in I wish I had those charts still. I lost so many charts because I just used to do them all over the place. But when I was in the acupuncture clinic in Goa years ago, a lot of those acupuncturists, I remember I was just kind of starting in astrology then too, and so many of them had this placement. And I thought, wow, that elephant tusk, it's really piercing. It's really those needles that are going in, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that elephant tusk is used for. But anyways, certainly piercing is a big part of this. We say piercing, we'll have to watch how many of these people do have, see if we've got some freaky piercing people with us. Anyways, so we get the 10 Vishva Devas: goodness, truth, will, ritual, time, lust, firmness, forbearance, avoidance, and our peak of joy. And these are, well, what I have really connected these with, these are sort of the universal qualities that we want to bring awareness to, you could say, generally speaking. But when we start to break these up, we see that it's the list of the 10 Vishvadevas. We see that come up a lot, like human rights and things like this comes up a lot with this. It's that sort of bridge between, again, those theoretical rights, those policies that we have that come out of Sagittarius, and those theoretical rights are becoming law. They're becoming law of the land to a certain degree. And I did sort of see a lot of, when we think of the human rights aspect of this, we kind of do see a few different sorts of human rights going through Sagittarius, right? We see that broad, really universal, just for everyone, fairness, equality in a sense. And we move through and we get, well, that sense of fairness, that sort of women's rights and rights for the weak when we go through the Purva Ashadha. And when we get to Uttara Ashadha, especially when we start getting to the end of Uttara Ashadha, it's really the might makes right, is really what's almost going on in here. And we see a lot of boxers and we see a lot of fighters, a lot of politicians with this. Down here, elephant drivers, right? Like elephant drivers, you've got to be the boss, man. You've got to be tough. There's a woman, I can't remember her name, Foisey. She'll come up. She was working with the apes and the gorillas and things like this, right? Like she was the boss, man. Go ahead, Emmett.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of curious about the Vishvadevas, because that's something that I have the list of them on my phone all the time, and I look to it as like my values and as my 10 commandments, like pretty regularly, to kind of remember what right action is. So I was curious if you had any more stories or insight on the Vishvadevas, because I find it's very hard to get information online about them.
I've been looking for them, and we'll get down there below, but I found some site where you could just search the name of the god and it would bring up all the scriptures on them. And so what I did, I just started, we've seen some of those coming up in other nakshatras. And I haven't looked at them, but I kind of took a bit of time to look at what I put there, and actually there's not much there. Yeah, anyways, we'll have a quick skim through them. But what I was getting a sense of, this is sort of what led me to my earlier revelation that you missed, Emmett, is I was getting the sense when I was looking at all the scriptures that were listed as Vishvadeva scriptures, it was listing off all the main gods, right? It was giving lists of the Ashvinis and the Maruts and anyways, all the Indras, and anyways, it was listing off all those main energies, the main forces. And that's kind of like, again, that's where it's like from going from that vagueness, that really broad universalist and mula of beliefs. Now beliefs are becoming like, what's the essence of it? And so here we've broken it into these 10 parts. And even when we look at like human rights, we look at the 10 commandments, these sorts of lists of 10, right? It's quite interesting. And this is important. It's something I need to look at more. But when we see these lists of gods like this, like you get the lists of 10, you get the lists of 8, you get lists of 3, and some of these, and these numbers are 8 is a big one as well. These numbers correlate sort of, I don't know how you can say this. Psychologically, you can use these clinically, right? You do 3 things, you do just these 5 things, you do these 8 things. And these different numbers will be able to target sort of different, how can you say, different psychosis, maybe? Something like that. It's really, the numbers are quite important in how we're dealing with these things, you could say, right? So you get like Alcoholics Anonymous has their list of so many things. You know, you've got all these kind of lists and ways of doing things, and it becomes quite important, and it is something I've wanted to research more, but I've seen it come up before. So yeah, now we're on the list of 10 commandment list, you could say, in a sense. So we get some secondary, we'll see. I don't have a lot on Vishnudevas below, but we'll go on more, and then when we get down, I'll ask you to key in a little, Emmett, because you probably know more about the Vishnudevas than I do, if you've been looking at them every day. So here we go. Some secondary deities. We get Ganesha. Of course, that's the elephant tusk sort of thing, but there is a kind of like elephant in the room with this nakshatra somehow. It's the king, it's the boss. It's like, it's that big thing in the room. You just sort of can't take your eyes off. You can't ignore it, right? That's sometimes with these, you can say, our morals and stuff like that. We think we can ignore these things. We think they're not important. We think they're just a man-made law. That's kind of what's going on in the Sagittarius. We think it's just this man-made rules. But when we get up to Uttara Ashadha, it's kind of like, no, there's a point to these rules. We can't ignore them. It's the elephant in the room. It's what's like, you can't ignore these virtues. You can't ignore these, you can't ignore your desire, your lust. You have to reconcile that sometime. You have to reconcile that sometime. Goodness and your evilness, or truth or lies. We have to, a lot of these things, there's no answer. There's no like, this is truth, that's a lie. Here, there's some of that mythology is going on. Like, what is the truth? What is the lie? What is my desire? How much of my desire do I control, and how much of my desire do I let loose? This sort of thing. So, right, we can't ignore the ancestors. These sorts of things all come up. So we got the elephant in the room here too. We talked about the wrestlers. There's a lot of boxers and fighters have this. Horses again. There's that, another thing that really came to mind, and it's almost as I was doing Uttara Ashadha, it's like all the Sagittarius nakshatras sort of started to come together for me. And I couldn't help but constantly be reminded that Sagittarius is the 6th house from Cancer. And so you've got those boundaries, those natural boundaries in Cancer. But in Sagittarius, there's kind of they're very unbound. A lot of explorers have this. They're living out in a world where there is no cultural homogeny. Right? They've got to kind of make things up for their own and figure things up for their own. And kind of like Emmett does, as long as you sort of keep these 10 commandments in mind, you're going to do all right. You're not going to too terribly break any cultural rules, you could say. Because now we're moving into Capricorn, which is coming straight across from those cultural boundaries. So it's kind of balancing that in the end of Uttara Ashadha. Devotees of the gods, so there's certainly a lot of that here. Immovable things like trees, warriors, persons enjoying pleasures. This is interesting the way they put that. Immovable things like trees, warriors, people enjoying pleasures, men of valor. It's like you're having sex and the phone rings, you're not moving, man. Kind of thing, right? I love the way they word things sometimes. And men of valor. And so it's like even men of valor, when they've got a mission or something like that, you can't move them from that mission. Again, these are the immovable things. You can't take these laws away. Doesn't matter where you go. So, anyway, so this is Shiva. This is destruction. So there's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be some turmoil. There's going to be this destructive sort of energy behind this. And I think part of what they're destroying is those narrow-minded local boundaries to a certain degree. We get Sage Kratu here. It's a human nakshatra. So as regardless of how divine they might think they are, ultimately they're only human. And this is dealing with sort of human rights type stuff as well. It's sort of that acceptance of being human, I think, going on here. And so then we do have to deal with these 10 things. So moksha is the motivation. It goes very nice. Shiva and moksha. Oh, I missed the Kshatriya sort of drive and all of this, that warrior caste. A lot of leaders have this position, like I mentioned, politics, but a lot of popes have this. A lot of kind of senators and people who are involved in making the laws and making the policies. We can't leave Pope Gregory out of this, one of our great gurus. So like he set the calendar, like these people are making the laws and making the rules, and some of them are, this is the way we do it now. So we get those, okay, and then the moksha, liberation.
What was the caste again, Mike? Sorry, like what caste is
Kshatriyas, they're leaders, they're warriors.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're they're there to sort of protect the knowledgeable and the wisdom and this kind of thing. In a way, even the calendar, that's what that did. That really all the knowledge was going out, and it brought it back into a center. It brought it back to a kind of truth. And a lot of people say now, like I've read this over and over again, that the Gregorian calendar is like, wow, it's just this amazing, really amazing calendar. Actually, it's no lightweight in regards to mathematics. Lots of mathematics you get in here as well, and that kind of thing. So the nature of it's very fixed. We talked about that. It's the elephant kind of thing. It's not moving. It's not going off. Activity, it's balanced in its activity, which is kind of hard when you're an elephant, but I guess it manages that. But it's sort of trying to balance things with, it's not balancing 2 things, it's balancing 10 things. And right, it's kind of like, and that's life. Life is kind of complex, and we've got to kind of balance all these different things in a certain degree. This is the washing ghat. And I have to laugh when I read this, because, well, where I live in Varanasi is the washing ghat down below. They banned washing in the Ganga now. Well, they started up all through COVID. They were washing there again. But I'd wake up in the morning to thump, 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 and it's like 10 of them doing it too. It's not just one. So it's fun funny, it makes me think of a helicopter sound as well as I say that, and 10 of it. And we'll have to watch for that as well. But there's that washing gap. There is that purity here. And one of the things I've always found amazing about the washing gap in Varanasi is a lot of the wash they're doing, that it's commercial people. They're washing for the hotels and things like that. The guys in front of me, anyways. And so they go down there with like piles of whites. You can't believe it. And Ganga's just this like muddy stream going by, and you can't imagine what's in there. And they throw this clothes in and they beat the heck out of it on the stones. Thump, 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 thump. These guys are like bodybuilders down here. And a lot of bodybuilders have this placement too. I should say the elephant, right? And so they're thump, thump, thump with that. And these whites are clean, then they're hanging, and there's just this glorious, you'll see a gazillion pictures on if you look up on Google of the washing gats of Varanasi, just these brilliant whites. It's amazing. So there's that purity, there's that cleansing that's going on here. And it's kind of harsh, right? It's kind of thump, 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 thump. It's really, it's that sun, it's that harshness. It's kind of beating the impurity out of you to a certain degree. But it is very sattvic. It's the element of air is represented here. We'll have to watch that. There was, I mentioned the helicopter, some other things came up, and I remember I wanted to come back and look and see if this was air. So that came up in my research. Hopefully we'll see that. Kapha, it's air element, but dosh kapha. So it's heavy. It's that elephant gate. So we're going to expect bigger people to have this as well. The elephants, in a sense. That kind of thing. Sex is female. Upwards facing. Upwards facing is usually fairly hopeful, but their head can be a little bit in the clouds, like that, or a little bit even stuck up, and a lot of stuck upness in this nakshatra. Southern direction, copper colored. That's that nice copper color too that we see with Sagittarius, actually. Sagittarius usually has this nice, and Jupiter as well has this nice copper sort of glow to it. Nice tan like. It's the male mongoose here, which is the one that kind of everybody sort of gets, oh wow, it has no partner. And so it's kind of, anyways, it's on its own. You could say very independent that way. We'll get more into that as we go down. The jackfruit tree. The jackfruit, I'd had a lot of jackfruit in my life and I didn't know it. And then Sanjay offered it to me. My teacher offered it to me one time and I was like, sure, I don't know. And it's a very strange thing. So Sanjay was cooking with it. He's putting this jackfruit in the curry, and he was like, oh, it's like vegetarian meat. And so then I'm eating the stuff in the curry and it's quite good. It's all right. I like it. And then I was down in Goa and there's jackfruits going all over the place. And just last time I was there, it was like jackfruit season. And so there's all these they're big, right? These massive jackfruits all over the place. And everybody's just giving them away because they're just falling all over the place and they make a huge mess. The cows love them, go crazy for them, but they're super sweet. They're supposed to be really good for diabetes. I don't know if I have that down there, but they're supposed to be really good for diabetes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some diabetes also in this nakshatra as well. But that's the jackfruit. So like that, I can see Dana nodding. I'm going to ask you more about the jackfruit later, Dana. I can see you know something. So we kind of went through those qualities. I guess I should have went through them down here, but there they are. We get Sage Kratu, that one who inspires, right? That's almost like that big, anyways, there's a lot of light, a lot of vision coming through here. And like the sun, you look up to it. It's someone you can follow it. It's really someone who can give direction. The sun, when we think of Sagittarius or that guru side of things, really what nakshatra is better, or what planet is better at giving direction than the sun? Can always rely on that, at least during the day. Yeah, he made all these little guys the size of the thumb, which I think is like relates with a lot of the insects and things like this, all the little critters running the earth and things like that. We get to the jackfruit, panasa, that's what they called it in India, the sweet tasting. sometimes called a miracle crop by the experts. Fruit can reach 80 pounds. Vegans, vegetarians meat, yellow colored for furniture. Oh yeah, it's a beautiful, that's right. It's a beautiful yellow colored wood. That's also relating with that Jupiter, what we think of as being representing yellow. Makes the Vina. So we get some nice musical instruments, the tropical growth. Well, it's been going on there forever. That light brown. Anyways, we'll go through that. No, what's coming here? Oh yeah, this story. 7 images. Krishna and the jackfruit. Yeah, that's right. I kept skimming over this story when I was reading. It's like, oh yeah, I know that story, but it was like, oh wait, I don't. Yeah, and they're fighting the rogue elephant. There was a lot of that, especially when we get into the Capricorn side of this. And I think this is where Jupiter becomes, we'll get to that, but now we'll go here. So this is where Jupiter becomes debilitated in Capricorn, right? So the beliefs, and that's kind of why Jupiter becomes debilitated in Capricorn, because might sort of starts to make right. Because Jupiter's representing the beliefs, and he gets into that Capricorn, and he's like, well, whoever's on top, if I just get to the top, I can be the tough guy. And that's why we sort of see a lot of dictators and stuff like that with debilitated Jupiter. And so it's really that, like, while they do kind of become that stubborn elephant, just power for power's sake when Jupiter's there. And so that's why it becomes quite bad, even though, wow, there's so many spiritual and holy things about Uttara Ashadha. You see it in Jupiter and Uttara Ashadha and Capricorn, and you think, well, that can't be that bad. But you see so many dictators and stuff, and that is that ability to sort of fight the elephant and defeat the elephant. We got that male mongoose. This was one of the things I found interesting about the mongoose was, on Lion King, where you get the mongoose and the warthog and the bamboo, and the 3 of them are hanging out. They're friends in real life. They're all buddies in real life. I love how these cartoons teach us things and we don't even pay attention. So you get this sort of thing like that. And so even with the mongoose, the male mongoose might have this sort of like these little groups of very different sort of people that help them out, even though they're single, right? They'll still have these sort of close relationships with people that you wouldn't expect, you could say. And I think that sort of sets into that idea of human rights as well. It's like you're a warthog, you're a baboon, and you're a mongoose. You have nothing in common, but you can still be friends, right? And so they kind of work together in different ways. So I thought that was kind of neat. This is probably going to get confusing. Something I found, Uttara Ashadha, so Sagittarius gets relation score for 28 when dealing with. Oh yeah, so just some relationship stuff. I wasn't quite finished dealing with this, just sort of dealing with some of the scoring, but it's like Uttara Ashadhas on the Sagittarius side don't like other Uttara Ashadhas on the Sagittarius side, but they really like the Capricorn side. And so the Uttara Ashadhas that are on the same side, they don't like themselves, but they like the other Uttara Ashadhas. And so I found that kind of interesting. That might have something to do with, because ultimately with the sun, there can only be one person at the top. And so if you're the big boss leader, you can deal with the big boss priest, but you can't deal with another big boss leader. You're like, no, I'm the boss. So that kind of thing kind of plays out a little bit here. Mars, I know in the notes, he's not exalted until the very end of Capricorn, but we still get Mars still works out pretty good here. All right, I'm just sort of skimming through that, but I probably got something there. But we'll find it later. I want to get into the universal gods, and I don't have much here, right? Not so much individuals, universal forces in nature that we have to work in order to gain external fruits of our work and the internal satisfaction. So, in the universal sense, they say our actions are ritual. They make all our actions into ritual. We need to act in accord with the universe. Again, these are the rules and laws we just can't ignore. They support the fruit pickers who support them. Anyways, you do get what the sun often does represent fruit trees and fruit prickers and fruit groves. I think we'll find here as well. I know there were some, well, at least some of the Rothschilds had this, and they were really big into vineyards. And I think it was, we'll get down to that. Maybe remind me when we get down to Venus. It was an exalted Venus, or wasn't exalted. Anyways, maybe it was Venus in here, representing vineyards. So you get those sort of fruit trees coming up here too. 10 Vishvadevas. I didn't really represent much more here. Emmett, you got anything to add about the Vishnadevas? Anything we're missing that you should know? The warrior, the wrestler, the painter, the artist, the magician, the well-dressed man, the happy and successful man are all influenced by this star. All related with the ancestors, bright skill, willpower, firmness, time, truth, desire. You got anything more?
No, like I just use them as my commandments, really. So
Yeah.
I just look at them every day, and like I look at them and like how to align my life. So I use it as my code of conduct, and those are the, like I look at it at the beginning of the year when I discovered them, and I'm like, okay, like where am I doing well and where do I need to improve on? So
Yeah.
so they just resonated like that. And yeah, you've found more than I have. I just live by
Yeah.
them, I guess, would be the thing.
Yeah, well, these really are those like you codes of conduct is a very, very good word. I'm glad you used that. Um, and these are those sort of codes of conduct that we could enshrine into law. It's kind of that sort of thing. And so, of course, when we get to the end and you get someone like you get a tough Jupiter in there, they do get enshrined into law, but that doesn't really work either. So it's this kind of loose space between actual law, universal law, and divine law and human law, you could say, I guess is the best way. So again, I was going through this, but we just
Oh, sorry. I
Oh,
was just gonna add that the Vishvadevas, because I had to do a bit of research also, like Emmett says, it's a bit confusing. And when I did my classes on the Vedas itself, just after the Vedas, the Vishvadevas were accounted like the 330 million gods of the Vedas, and they divided them in 33 gods just to make like a separation. And what was interesting for me, yes, it was like you said before, the 8 Vasus, the 12 Adityas, 11 Rudras, and the 2 Ashwins. And then there's 11 for each loka, like the underworld, the earth, and the sky. So also that division, I think like later on, these 10 Vishvadevas come later, like with the Puranas, and probably later with the later literature, making it like you said, exactly, like from that Sagittarian plane of the ideal into the practicality of the matter. Because as you know, like in the Vedas, gods represent like spaces of consciousness or in nature and things like that that become later
yeah,
gods like Varuna or things like that. So I think that reduction into 10, like you say, the number 10 is like a posterior thing to divide them all. But I think it would be interesting also to think of them, because of this locus, to think of them not only like our code of conduct, but like it has different dimensions energetically, how we use them in the subtle level, in the high, in the earthly plane, in our spiritual level, not only like morals. And also it reminded me when you said balancing is the story of Ganesh balancing in the mouse. So it also has to do with these higher levels of conduct that are not really related only with our physical conducts in life, but how we relate to our inner mind, spiritual things.
this is all, yeah, yeah. I think there is a sort of, you talked about the lokas and the different dimensions that we live in, and I think with these ones, there is that sort of sense that so I looked at a comment in my brain, I lost my mind. But there is a sense that these rules can almost apply in any loka as well, in any world, in any division, sort of anywhere you go, no matter how high you rise to a certain degree. These things will apply. So yeah, that's nice. Thank you very much, Dana. That was perfect. And so yeah, you are getting this sort of boiling down of all of this. there's also, we see the weight also sort of coming down from that really density of mula, right? And it's still quite heavy, the density of water, I guess you could say. And now we're in that like more of an elephant, the density of so it's kind of the weight is sort of coming down, and it's almost like it's becoming more grounded, more, what can you say? As we get into Shravan, it's like it's coming down, and Shravan's going to start to flatten and kind of spread that weight out sort of all over the earth, I guess you could say, the ground, so anyways, like this. So I'm just going to cruise through here because, like I said, this is dealing with a lot of the Purana gods, and Dana, really thank you very much for that. That was really, really good. So we get, again, these are just different laws of nature, right? Different laws: attraction, polarity, rhythm. It's 5, but there's 2 sides to all of these. There's 10. If we get into Chinese medicine, they also have the lists of 10 qualities that they're using. In Ayurveda, we use some of these different qualities that we're using in Ayurveda. A lot of these are coming out of Uttara Ashadha. These lists of 5 polarities, the natural laws of karma, I kind of put in here too. These kind of things, the elephant tusk. This came up quite a bit. Again, that piercing, any kind of needles are brought into this, the jab, the poke, the vaccination. A lot of things we use for digging as well. So shovels, things we're using to pierce the ground, all of that kind of stuff. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Okay. Well, I have Venus and Uttara Ashadha in my 3rd house. Saturn's aspecting them, but I used to be like, I'm a master of a shovel. There's a right way and a wrong way to use a shovel, and I'm one of those guys, like, I'm a master of a shovel from the old days. And I used to have this crowbar as well. I do acupuncture as well, but I had the crowbar. It was like a 7-foot, 3/4-inch steel acupuncture needle that I would like. Again, it was a little bit, now I think about it, it's a little bit like the washing gap, because I'd have to push it into the ground like that many times. Used to have really big shoulders. Now I'm kind of a skinny guy. But so anyways, I just sort of realized that. It made me laugh. I love the bar. I love the shoveling too. It was very peaceful for me, like a meditation. So so different things, piercing the grounds and things like this, used for digging, stripping the bark off things, gathering food. The tusks are used for a lot: defense, aggression, fighting, a little bit like the mongoose. I didn't mention that the mongoose, they're very interesting. I remember the first time I stayed in Varanasi a little bit later into the summer. They got lots of mongoose there. They're just running around all over the place, running through the guest houses all the time and this kind of thing. At least on the ground floors. And so I was there later in one summer, and nothing's going on. We're just sitting in the rooms in the middle of the day, trying to be cool. And I got my door open, I can see in the lobby, and it would fill with these mongoose. And it was all hilarious to watch. There would be maybe a couple males there with a bunch of females, and the males would be kind of fighting once in a while, but they're just running around, just like, I have to use the word fucking each other, because it was really like a rat, like they're like, it was just, oh, it was hilarious. Really funny thing to watch. But what the males do, there's a lot of sort of dominance and jealousy in those relationships. The dominant male sort of tries to corral some women around together. The maybe the adolescents or the weaker male mongooses, they're sort of coming in and like trying to sneak in there, and sneak away with one of the women, that the dominant male, and the women are also trying to sneak away. And it's a sort of chaos of fighting, with these dominant males really trying to corral their females and keep them in line. And everything in nature is trying to keep them out of line. And so we kind of get like Uttara Ashadha is kind of like that as well. Nature's chaotic from that mula craziness of theories and ideas and universals. Now we're trying to make sense out of all of that. And it's boiled down to this now, almost trying to corral some order into all this chaos. So this is still a Shiva Nakshatra, so it's still chaos. There's a sense too of, if we think from a scientific perspective, there's a lot of like, this is that permeable boundary. This is where things are able to pass through. Maybe it's the minerals and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot to do with minerals here, bone density, all that mineral stored in the bones. All of that would be represented here as well. Then if that's the case, then we're going to get things related to osteoporosis and osteoarthritis probably also coming into here. And there's going to be some bone problems as well, no doubt, skeletal issues, that kind of things. So the ivory tusks are said to bring blessings. They give power and majesty, allow one to rise above all the other animals. It's a powerful weapon of defense and can be used for digging, fitting, gathering, stripping bark. Varuna used his boar tusk to lift the earth out of the darkness. There's some of that in this nakshatra, trying to lift up out of the darkness. After we've overpopulated, causing to shrink, Rishi had given Indra a special garland he placed on the elephant. Oh yeah, that garland that the Rishi put on Indra's elephant, that led to one of the big wars. The elephant dumped it on the ground, the Rishi took offense, and boom, there was a big thing about that. In Chinese culture, ivory is a symbol of luck, wealth, high status, a lot of high status here. It's often used for sculptures, carvings, a lot of that going on here too, as we'll see. Uttara Ashadha was a mold. It was soft. You could mold it. Uttara Ashadha is hard. You have to carve it. You have to chisel it out to a certain degree. Yeah, it's not easy to chip into this. And that's kind of like human rights in Uttara Ashadha, they're also easy. It's no problem. I think in Uttara Ashadha, you're starting to get responsibilities coming in here too. It's that two sides of things now are coming. Rights and responsibilities are one thing here to a certain degree. So others say the cream colored white represents chastity, opulence, virtue, purity. A pound of ivory is said to be worth as much as $1,500 on the black market. In Christianity, elephants represent temperance, chastity, patience. It's interesting. I always love it when you look at all these different cultures and they have the same meanings. They're very similar for all these things. King Solomon's throne is apparently made of ivory, as was a significant statue of Zeus. So it's a symbol for royalty. Splendor has to be considered. Days of ivory become a symbol of greed of men who kill magnificent elephants just for ivory tusks. There is a lot of greed here too. And well, we'll see. I don't want to. I think there's.
All that get cut for you too, Dana?
Yes, but I wasn't sure if it was me because I'm in the middle of the base, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, guys. I should warn before classes now. I'm going to be in Red Deer for a little while. This is going to happen probably, it looks like once every class. Every time I've done something, this happens once. So, and well, anyways, on a 3-hour class, maybe it's happening twice, and then we'll see where we get here. So it's recording. So we're back to share screen. So we were talking about the ivory. I was the greed that comes through the ivory as well, killing these magnificent elephants. Joseph Conrad, the Heart of Darkness. There is a lot in here. A lot of symbols of the heart came up in here. They really, really did. But I think in a sense, it's like that tridactic heart of Shiva. And I know Dana's probably at least looked at this book. If she hasn't read it, you have to read that book, Dana, if you haven't. And Emmett, if you haven't seen Tridactic Heart of Shiva, it's a really lovely book. all about the heart symbolism in Tantra. Really, really lovely. It's yeah, anyways, Blue
How do
Throat,
you spell it? Which book?
Tridactic Heart of Shiva. Ortega, I
I
think
haven't
is,
read it yet, but I have it on my list there. I
yeah,
was looking at it
yeah,
this week, actually.
it seemed like the kind of book you would procrastinate with. Because it does, it seems very, very academic, but it's a beautiful book. It's really, really beautiful book. Um, and a lot of that guy's kind of academic. He has an ashram, the blue-throated one, something like that, the blue-throated ashram or something like that. Emmett, you might be passing by that. I think it might be on the west coast of the USA, the blue-throat ashram or something along those lines. Anyway, so there's that. There was some Shaivism came up in this as well, but we'll get to that. Because that's not oneness. There's a monotheism also coming in involved in here as well, to a certain degree. So we talked about the sculpture, ivory used for piano keys, billiard balls, especially back in the day, pianos and billiards, that was like really for the upper castes, as well for specialized electrical equipment, airplanes, radar. Again, these things come up, man. We'll look at these people and we'll be like, oh wow, there's that guy. For treating parasites, this is that purity, parasites, scabies, rivers, worm infections. Go ahead, Emmett.
Yeah, before we get too far, the blue-throated ashram, where is it? I'm looking for it. It's not giving me anything.
It's I think it's on the west coast of the US somewhere.
Yeah. Is it
Maybe
like a
Northern California, something like that. He seems like a Northern California kind of guy.
they do like blue throat yoga?
This is the book.
Oh,
Oh, that looks awesome. Yeah.
Does I have it here? Like, should I not read it?
oh, it's really lovely. If you want to know more about Uttara Falguni, read that book. So it's been a while, maybe 10 years or more since I read it. So I could probably use a refresher. I think it might be my books are close. Anyways, some of them are. So of course there's mystical uses of the elephant as a protective amulet to a certain degree. Neutralizes poisons, toxins, gives the wearer a strong virility. There is a lot of virility here as well. Again, there's that sense of penetration, right? How can that not be related to sex to a certain degree? We get also the planks of the bed also involved in here. So we did get some sexuality in here. We'll get to that. And ivory, believe it or not, it's hard enough to sharpen you can sharpen a knife with it, use it to sharpen spear tips, knives. You can use it, ivory, to sharpen other things that are hard. We might, there was yeah, right, it's right. There was a diamond guy here too. One of the early guys, Blood Diamonds in Africa fellow. His name will come up as we go through here. So, of course, the Mahabharata was written with Ganesha's tusk as well. That's how Sage Vyasa wrote it. Like that, or yeah, Ganesha wrote it with his tusk. So he had to tell the whole story in one sitting. Tusk is also a weapon of war, spear, missiles also. At least one person died by missile with placements here. Many carpenters have this placement. Nails is also something that came up quite a bit. Nails. And then the reason this came up is because I started seeing some of the girls I knew were doing nails. So like the claw nails on the fingers, right? There was some Venus placements, I think, and they were making these beautiful little nails. So that kind of thing. That's also, this is interesting because the nails is a waste product as well, right? But it's also this protective shell. It's kind of our teeth as well, our bones. These things are the hardness, the minerals that sort of come together and make these hardness to not just protect us, but to help us to stand up, right? There is a sense of rising up, like sitting on the elephant, right? You rise up with this nakshatra. In that regard as well, I just learned this. When did this come up? Oh, this came up with a little bit of Uttara Ashadha, but the trees, but that shape of the Christmas trees sort of seems to be here as well. The planks of bed, I think, also related a little bit with things like lumber and the wood industries and things like this. The sense of wood did come out. Again, you can carve, you can shape wood as well. To a certain degree. It's a little more rigid again. When we're shaping with wood, we're getting squares. We're not going to be able to mold it and shape it like we could with Purva Falguni, and then get these soft, gentle circles. So you get that square shape more coming out of this. The planks have been lifted us up from the floor, protects us from the cold, the critters that run along the floor. There is these critters that run along the floor. This came up just up here as well. This is that a lot of that snobbery in Uttara Ashadha, right? It's like I'm up here and then all these little critters are just running around down here. These aren't people who really belong to the masses to a certain degree. These are people who are above the masses. The masses are kind of like these, they're maybe their children. There's that father energy here, but they're just all these little uncouth critters running around with no law or no civilization. And there's a certain degree that the Uttara Ashadha is going to bring that law and bring that civilization to them. So the planks of the bed, they support us when we sleep as well. And so they get good night's sleep, and there's that the guards are all down, but they can sleep quite well. We find the guru or the chief sitting up on the bed while the visitors spread out on the mats on the floor. Usually takes some kind of merit to sit on the bed. It's reserved for the boss, the elders, the wise gurus. I once read that from an esoteric perspective, Capricorn is Nidra, sleep. I remember the book, it's not coming to my mind right now, but very esoteric astrology it might have been. Bipin Bahari, I think. The reasoning, relates with sleep. The reasoning being that since this is the most active phase of energy, it's the most outward flowing place, that we're the most asleep to our true spiritual natures. In some ways, we discover the value and worthiness of our faith. What is good? What is it good for if not to help us lift us? But this is like, in a sense, especially when we get to the Capricorn side, there's a sense that you're so busy doing, right? And these people are often trying to do some kind of good. They're so that it's almost like the ends justify the means here to a certain degree. They want to get that goal. They want to achieve that pinnacle. And so in the meantime, they end up sort of hurting a lot of people around them. In order to sort of purify, to bring the law to a certain degree. So we talked about the bones, we talked about stomach waste. I don't have much on my health here, but we talked about the arthritis. I've got this in my head, I just haven't written it. So we get a lot of this sort of stuff. Really, it's the bones and the minerals in the bones, I think, is really the biggest thing with this. So that also represents, like, it's also the blood clotting. We talked about that a little bit in Purva Ashadha, the blood and the things that are in the blood. And so this is going to be maybe some of the white blood cells that are in the blood, these things that are used for clottings. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. In the West, we get them in the sky, I guess, the stars representing the breast of the archer, the armpit. It's also the larger constellation called the teapot, tea ceremonies and things like that we might think of. The moon transitioning, how just a really good time to build, to make things, to build things, to balance things out to a certain degree. What else could we say? This is a fixed nakshatra. So anytime if we're thinking of the muhurta and when we want to do things, um, things that we want to last and to keep going, that's what we do on fixed. It's like a fixed day. If like even like if you want to do a classes where your classes like you're fixing that calendar, like Pope Gregory did. So there is that sort of fixity that way coming into this that way. I saw some favorable for winemaking activities, and I mentioned we saw anyway some wine, some fruit, some orchards, this kind of thing. Government officials, very good for anybody like bureaucrats, senators, anybody involved with making laws that way, laws of the land, all this kind of stuff. There is a big sense here of, it depends on the placement, but I was seeing a lot of this, like these laws almost coming in from outside and coming in from outside. I saw cops, white cops working in black neighborhoods like Derek Chauvin, right? Trying to bring this law in from outside somehow. A lot of that, again, it's that penetrate. It wants to get, it's coming from outside. It wants to get inside. It wants to get in there. And so there is a lot of that proselytization. Key themes. I'm going to skip this because this was very generic. I never actually got to really writing anything that was really that interesting here, to be honest with you. You can read it on your own, but what we'll go through, we'll say much more than anything I wrote there, I promise you. I've already said much more than I've written there. So where are we here? Okay, let's so here we are, Uttara Ashadha Ascendant. So very powerful. Swami Satyananda Saraswati. This was the Woodstock guru. Yogaville, another ashram you can find down in the US. I'm sure there's still Yogavilles down there.
Uttara Ashadha.
Pardon me?
Right? I'm confused. Never mind. Keep on.
Okay, maybe did I say the wrong nakshatra? Uttara?
No, it's me.
Okay. We know how often it is me that's the confused one, so I don't put it past me. So anyway, so we get Swami Swachananda again, that guru coming from outside and bringing it into the West to a certain degree. Thich Nhat Hanh also has this. Rabindranath Tagore also has this. There's also a sort of sense to these guys. Their spirituality is getting to be more practical as well, right? They're not quite head up in the clouds like pretentious. Well, they are kind of pretentious, but they're practical and they're bringing it to the masses, is what they want to bring the law to everybody to a certain degree. Then you get even physicists. He's also making laws in Rutherford, nuclear physicist, all kinds of laws of the universe that he's coming up with. We get Mark Garneau. He was a naval officer, astronaut. Again, it's not hard to see that rocket ship, for example, going up into space and penetrating out into the atmosphere as well. That way, Michael Landon. I don't know if you know him. He was really, I hardly came up in this Highway to Heaven. I used to watch that show when I was a really little kid. And at the end of the show, or I think it was at the end, I should watch a show. It's probably on YouTube. But he would like basically take this escalator up to heaven. And so he's like going around, and he was just this nice kind of pastor sort of character, bringing the law, universal laws to people and enlightening them. Anthony Hopkins, Willie Nelson. Some of these guys are not sure if they have this ascendant or not, but maybe he's the Willie Nelson. There's the big cowboy on not just on the elephant, but also horses, right? So we will get things related with the horses and the cowboys here to a degree, right? Cowboys came in and invaded the Indians, didn't they? So we get some music. Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451. I don't know if you've read that. It's all about book burning. Marie Antoinette, you let them eat cake. Tulsi Gabbard, army medic, probably giving needles and things like that. She probably takes blood and things like that nowadays. Alison Krauss, bluegrass. Yeah, she was quite religious and spiritual as well. And there is some diabetes here as well. I don't know about the famous people, but some of the people I know here, I'm already seeing a couple people that have diabetes. Again, that's taking the needle. That's those needles that come in with this, and also the problem of fat on the body. That also relates with this. And I think you will see things like we probably would see things like high cholesterol and things like that here as well. Of course, Jupiter is debilitated or getting to be debilitated, at least in Uttara Ashadha, and that's also the fat on the body. And so you're going to get in the debilitation, you're getting unhealthy fat on the body with Jupiter here. Anyway, so the Ascendant, you get some spa workers, you get some philosophers, you get like the people I know, all of them are working in spirituality to some degree. Get big people, a lot of bankers, Medici's here, Emmanuel Macron, like I said, some Rothschilds had placements here. So these are the bankers in a lot of ways. They are the ones who are making the laws. A lot of the people here as well, they're not necessarily the elected officials. These aren't necessarily the elected people making the laws. These are the people that they've gotten to the top, either by merit or wealth or whatever it might be, or education, and they're making the laws that it's kind of a bit merit based here to a certain degree. So you get judges, you get people, Samuel Johnson sermonizers, Wilfred Skinner behaviorism, again, laws and rules of molding behavior kind of come. A lot of physicists have this, a lot of scientists, chemists, just a lot of these kinds of people, a lot of very educated, a lot of nobles and things like that. I was seeing had this officers in the military, those kind of peoples, even Miguel Cervantes, Emmanuel Macron, Nazi officers, anthropology, brain anatomy. There was a few journalists and some what can you say? Usually like more investigative journalists. People are looking for the truths. So you got Tom Selleck, who is a Magnum PI character. These kinds of things. Barry White, remember coming out in all the white suits and things like that. I think that was Barry White. Billie Holiday, he died he was still like a pure child, basically died in a plane accident. What was the other thing? The airplanes came up a lot in this as well. And naval, excuse me, Air Force, Navy, pilots, all of that kind of thing really came up a lot in here. Again, it's I think getting as high as you can get. There's a lot of sense of getting height in here. So Ramakrishna had this, Rush Limbaugh, right? Some powerful people. Ben English, he was in the porn industry, but I think again, he was the top dog. He's probably quite debilitated, but he was that alpha male, right? He was the man. And there is that sense here, the man, the dude. Jeff Bridges has a lot of placements here. Might be my Venus here that kind of, I have a bit of that energy too. The man, the dude, kind of that. So maybe my Venus is also bringing that out in this. He's the one, he's the big guy, Jesus, right? He's the whatever, the highest. They're the top dog somehow to a certain degree. And a lot of times they're kind of like, they're higher than the leader. In a way, it's like the advisor to the leader, or the leader that has the case, the ability to sort of think in that broader perspective. Until you get Jupiter debilitated here. So when the sun is here, really perfectionist, really dedicated to their work, their mission in life, what they're doing. A lot of it's that momentum going forward. It's like the elephant, once he's going forward, he doesn't stop. I think too of well, at least when I was a kid, we had these really big cars. We called them boats, right? These massive things of steel. And in Canada, you'd get on the highway with one of these and started hitting 100 or 120 kilometers, and there was no stopping these things. They were like an elephant. It was that forward moving momentum. And I think there's maybe some connection or some relationship here with when we look across at especially at Punarvasu. No. Yeah. Punarvasu. And that's also relating with the elephant trainer as well. And there's a lot of that wrestling and that. So it's almost you get that opponent or that sparring partner or those two almost sumo wrestlers coming back at each other. That what's that? How's that saying go? The immovable force meets the unmovable object or something. Anyways, it's that sort of thing. There's these two real big heavyweights here, and sometimes they don't always want to move. So these people, they can be hard workers. They do well in their own business, last man standing kind of environments. So a lot of sports as well coming in through here. The podium, getting to the top of that podium. They're not particularly welcoming to competition. They have to be the best. There can only be one star at the top. The sun tends to favor men over women. Since the women will be seen as bitchy and bossy with this, but the truth is the men are also bitchy and bossy that have this placement. King of the Ring kind of guys. These are the guys, again, some of the greatest boxers of all time. George Foreman, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. There's some MMA guys also have this that I didn't add. We find the elephant just being used for comment, seeking dominance. They're the alpha male in the group. That's not just fighters, it's how these people are. It's probably for this reason a lot of them do work on their own. They don't really work well with others. They like to be on their own, boss, doing everything. They also like that too. They do everything, these people. They're really multitaskers. All kind of comes back to them, right? Like from all directions, it comes back to them in that sense. And it is that star too. There's that radiance sort of thing coming from this too. So they take care of business, really take care of business kind of people. This does not mean they'll not work with others. They have their hand in everything in some degree. They're often a source of power for others, kingmakers kind of in their way. There's, of course, a big difference in the way we dominate others. Some like George Foreman has Venus, Jupiter with his sun, so he's kind of a big teddy bear. Epstein has Rahu conjunct, which could give that narcissistic personality. Al Capone has a sun in 12th, 11th from moon, and he had a lot of intimidation. There's probably some aspects there too, but a lot more intimidation when there's harsh aspects to the sun. And so we see these kind of mob bosses. These guys are, especially when sun is here, these guys are the boss. This is the rooster in the hen house with many partners, a whole harem of followers. There's some similarity in this way to Ravati, the shepherd, except in this case, they're leading the flocks. They're kind of in front of the flocks, and the flocks are following, whereas in Ravati, the shepherd's behind the sheep, kind of herding them, right? But there's still the flock is still there. These natives are typical role models.
Yep.
Some others aspire to.
Because he has a bad upload speeds at his place, so it all depends. So the video doesn't get it.
Okay. Can you hear me still? Oh, come on.
I do wonder if he sees us do this stuff, you know?
I can. Yeah, you completely cut out on me for a little while, but I could hear you again now. I don't know if you can hear me. Nobody's moving on my image. Oh, there you are. You're moving again. You're back. I'm back. Hey, guys. Yeah, this is Canada, man. Everybody, like, Canada is not a first world country. I'm sorry. It's not.
Red Deer is not a first world town. That's what it is.
It's a developing country. Canada has a couple cities. I'll give it that. But that's it. Like, otherwise, we're out in the boonies here. I'm out in the hinterlands. This is my, yeah, anyways. So, sorry, guys. If I was in India, I would have a better connection.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to have to leave because I have to take my dogs to shore. before the fishermen put their nets around. So thank you so much. And I'll see the recording.
Right, later.
Thank you, Dana. Well,
But Mike, sometimes like if you look at your internet service provider, you might be able to pay an extra $5 to get more upload speed. Because I think it's the upload speed that's causing you the issues, because that's what I was getting at your place.
okay, I'll look into that.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you for your broad-minded wisdom.
I'll help with your broadband.
Yeah. Help so my followers can connect. So they're leading the flocks. These natives are typical real role models. Someone that others aspire to, all of that. They help lift others up. There's a lot of that going on up here too. Sun nakshatras are all about power. So here we find the king and his throne. It's too much heat for most of us. It does feel cruel, and of course, there's afflictions. It could actually be actual cruelty. All about ascension, purification, seeking perfection. With the sun here, they'll express themselves through their own medium, and they're probably harder on themselves than they are on anybody else. Other planetary placements will influence the rest of the world this way. So the reason these people are so beloved is they help uplift all the common people, the workers, the laborers, the wage earners. They're helping to, they're the father of all these little critters that are around them. They're the big guru, and so they have to lift them all up. They're men of the people. I didn't finish writing, but we've only elected a few of these people. Actually, they're usually working outside of the elected system. And so we see, but very powerful leaders. Jean Chrétien is there. He got elected, Richard Nixon. And Sun and Sagittarius, I think they're more, we don't elect these people as people. We elect these people as their their ideology, their party, their affiliation. That way is what we elected to a certain degree. But we get Kepler. Geez, people are working with planetary motion and universal laws. Like we talked about above, there was the physicist, Jeff Bezos, bringing everything together, bringing everything sort of comes back to these hubs. If you think of the way Amazon does their logistics, that's really Sun and Uttara Ashadha. That's the way it does its logistics. It has these hubs and everything comes back to one sort of point that way. You get some really great performers and entertainers. Go ahead, Emmett.
Yeah, and it looks like they're all like leaders that got there by their example and their own values and what they believe in, rather than like by a vote or by something like that, you know?
Yeah, they got there somehow by their own merit. Like the boxers, they had to fight to their top. It was like even the politics, it's like last man standing. And these people can be that last man standing, or woman. Even the women are very powerful. Bernadine Doran Iyer, she's like a bank robber, a radical communist organization. A lot of criminal deeds. They've killed people. Sydney Biddle Bauer, she's running an escort agency. She's basically a madame, right? The last woman standing. These sort of areas too are very, very tough. And so even when it comes to ideas, it's that best idea is the last one. That's it.
And I see Dave Grohl there as well, and I'm just like, is he the last remaining member of Nirvana kind of thing as well? Like,
Oh, I didn't know that, but yeah, there you go. Last man standing. Yeah. So yeah, you get this Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the wrestler, all those King of the Ring kind of things like that. Last man standing type stuff. And again, there's the boxers, but I'll bet you even when those boxers train, they would probably train with multiple people. And those were probably street fighters too, who fought multiple. Wow. So yeah, there was one-on-one, but I think there was also a lot of multiple fighting, lots of multiple people there going on. And again, last person standing. Yeah, Yeah, if there's any of these charts you want to open up and have a look at here, we see essentially we get some muscular dystrophy here. Oh, there's that Diane Foisey, primatologist. I'm going to open her chart because that was interesting. She's kind of a tough, fairly manly looking woman. Yeah, she's got Sun, Saturn, Mars, all in her 11th house. It's like these gorillas were her friends. And to a certain degree, she had to out alpha male a bunch of gorillas, basically. So this is a tough woman, man. Yeah, she's got the Rahu in the ascendant. You don't do something like that unless you think you're something special and you can get away with things that other people can't get away with. Her Jupiter ascendant lord is exalted in the 5th house, so giving very powerful intelligence, taking those kinds of risks for education and that sort of thing. And then you've got that Mars, Saturn, Sun all aspecting the Jupiter together. And so she's one tough woman, man. Yeah. I talked about some of the differences between, like, we get these Al Capones and these Muhammad Alis, we get these sort of more corrupt figures when I'll just open Al Capone's chart. So, not sure, let me just have a quick look here, chart notes. So apparently I haven't fully rectified this. I've got all question marks beside all these different times here. I should come back and have a look at it.
Well, I feel it's tough for Al Capone as well, right? Like he's not necessarily an out there, here's my life story kind of guy, you know?
Yeah, well, there was that sort of thing as well. His son, though, we'll say the 11th house from the moon here. And so that's again all these probably some very, very powerful friends who helped him get to the top in that degree. And it really was the marketplace he was dealing in was really like the tough guy wins. But his son has Saturn aspecting and Mars aspecting. And so it is becomes quite aggressive, but also quite very systematic. That coldness of the Saturn is there. Really brings out the harshness, I think, and the sort of discipline that it takes to be a mob boss. Yeah. We got someone like we'll go down here and we'll see some of these placements. We see the Sagittarius. I'm going to go through the Sagittarius part fairly quick, I think, because there won't be many names, but we get some really high intelligent people, really top dogs, father figures to a certain degree as well, because it's Sun in Sagittarius, so quite strong father figure would be there in that sense that they have to protect the others, protect those below them. Jeff Bezos, let's have a look at his chart. So that's that Saturn, Mars, that's that kind of industrialist type energy there. Let me just see something here. Yeah, anyways, I got another source there. But if we look the sun, his sun and moon are together. This is actually, wow, this makes someone really harsh. Their whole life, they've grown up in this like top dog eats dog kind of world. The parents were very harsh. There's no, well, it's dark moon, right? So there's no emotional sensitivity there at all when it comes to figuring out and sorting out who gets to the top. And so that's Jeff Bezos. Let's just look at Swami Vivekananda's for our comparison on that. So if we look at his, he has no harsh aspects on his sun. And even Jupiter, who rules the placement of the sun, he's got an aspect by Mars, but that actually ends up working out quite nice for him. Yeah, so he's
They
that.
both have Saturn in the 10th as well. So like that discipline of that father, that coldness always kind of looking over, right?
Yeah, well, that's that strong sense of responsibility of coming into the leadership that way. So he's that father figure by personality, and so everything he does, yeah. Then the Saturn is he really takes his leadership seriously. Yeah, and then the Mercury is going up with Venus into the second, and so that's the speaking, the lecturing, also in charge of probably storage. Well, because Venus rolls the 11th, so fundraising and all that sort of stuff, using his leadership to fundraise, really, really good at raising funds and making money. No doubt about that. Yeah. So you could say nice guru who took his things seriously. Yeah. So you can see how that different influences. Let me just see his. Yeah, he's got the moon waning, and it's not like a big moon. It's still fairly harsh because he's got moon and Saturn together. It's also being aspected by Ketu. And so emotionally, this guy was a little bit similar. He didn't have a lot of emotions, but it wasn't that emotional cruelty that you're going to get when the sun is, or when the moon is combusted by sun. It's just going to be kind of an emotional discipline, a coldness. You come to him crying, he's not going to cry with you. He's not going to, he's not that father that's going to give you a hug. He's not, he's kind of cold and hard. But it's in that 10th house. So a lot of it's because he has to be the leader, and he really takes that leadership roles very, very seriously. So we get it moving into the second house. And so we're finding it when it's an Uttara Ashadha. We're finding it connecting more with wealth. It's the 10th Lord going into the second house. So these guys are also, anyways, wealth and wealth storage, wealth management. Really, their lives sort of the one with the most wealth almost becomes the one who is the top dog, the one with the most wins kind of idea there. And in this case, because it's Sagittarius, it might be the most followers, right? It might be that sort of thing. But really, I think it's probably the most wealth. So in the third house, these people are like, they're central figures in the party, central figures of the team. That kind of thing is what I really sort of found in politics, right? It's that ideological team that they're the center of, like that. That's the 11th Lord. And so it's bringing connecting a lot of different groups together as well, like that. Meiji. I got some nice research. Let's just cruise through some of these. Oh. Lee Bowers, that was the guy who witnessed the JFK assassination. So that's kind of interesting, the sixth house. And so this getting trouble but from authority and things like that. The second Lord, and so that's his story. Getting his story, putting his story together and things like that. And being the witness to a crime, and a crime of the president, perhaps. Something relating to that kind of thing. It's interesting to see Joe Fraser and Sidney Billowbauer have this sun gaining the sixth house. There might be some prosperity coming through this too. Maybe also through criminal enterprise. And being sort of the head of, what do they sometimes say in the classic text, leader of thieves, as sort of a sun and sixth house thing can be sometimes. So it's just leader of people who break the rules or unbalanced. like that. I'm gonna just cruise through here because this gets more interesting a little bit. So it's interesting the change we get from, well, from the Sagittarius side to the Capricorn side. These kind of things, this really, I've mentioned it before, I'm sure I've mentioned it in other nakshatras. This really makes it so we have 36 nakshatras, not 27. So I think I might end up having to do that if I'm going to put out books on this. I might end up having to do, I'll do the 36 nakshatras and I'll just piss off all the Vedic astrologers out there.
I would help you with that anytime, Mike. Like for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so from now on, and here's my Venus and my Uttara Ashadha, I declare 36 nakshatras. Just as Pope Gregory declared the calendar. So, anyways, it's all right. So it's numbers. It's all about the numbers. We just got to get the numbers right. That's all. So we got the numbers sorted out. So we get Medicis, we get the bankers. Again, we're getting very powerful leaders here. But now I think it's more moving into it's getting a little bit dirty. It's the first nakshatra, it's still very pure. It's still not coming out into action. They're still not trying to make those theories into solid laws out in the world. They're still kind of theories. But on the Capricorn side, now they're making it into laws to a certain degree, but they're still the top dog. And this is the eighth lord coming into the first house here. And so you don't know really what to expect with these people. And they really are the top dog. They are the leaders and they do the work. They've worked their way to the top. Like that. In the second house, then we're getting the ninth lord coming into the second. So we're getting that nepotism, the family becomes the center of everything. Yeah, look, since my mom inspired me to make Mariska Haggerty the Law and Order detective lady. But again, she's also dealing with laws and family laws as well, coming up in that a lot. David Grohl, I don't know if he's anyways, last man standing there. Let's just have a quick look. Maybe he's Joan of Arc. There he is in the third. It's the last man standing in the band, perhaps, in that third house. Jesus as well. I don't know how he was the last man standing, but I mentioned him. Let's pull up Jesus's chart. It's one of those charts, you make it up, you look for his birth time and you see a gazillion of them. And you kind of think, oh, maybe this one's correct. What did I put? December 1st, 19, yeah, anyways, like that. No, December 25th, year one is what I made for Jesus. And we see certain things that do seem to make sense, right? And maybe I've got his birth time wrong here. Yeah, I've got 8 o'clock, so his birth time's wrong here. But if we set his birth time correct, there's certain things that make sense. All these placements in Uttara Ashadha, and he was the carpenter's son, and we see a lot of carpenters have these placements as well in Uttara Ashadha. Again, it's dealing with lumber. It's like these people who are putting up walls as well, or they're putting up not the walls, the structure of the building, for example, framing things, that kind of things. And really, there is a lot of that. I talked about the sense of like things coming back to a point, or I always see it almost as these like the rays of the sunshine, how they go out, but there's almost, and I've seen a lot of images with the artists like that have this placement. You're seeing these trees or these boards stacked up like the fence, if you look through a fence, or I saw some engineers where you're looking through those crisscrosses of iron kind of things. Anyways, so you're kind of,
Yeah, so I guess maybe this like I'm not sure, but I guess this sign is the sign of like the cast is Kshatriya, which is warriors and leaders. So how does that fit into carpentry? or does it come out somewhere else because of the moon nakshatra is more important in this situation?
Jeepers, you look at carpentry, you look at the trades. Those are mostly, a lot of them are very kshatriya. Best man for the job. If you can do the job, you can do it. You get a lot of warriors working in the trades, right? Right? They're strong, they're powerful.
Assertive in their trade. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's well, it might be anybody who can do the trade, but ultimately it's like the best man does kind of win in that sort of situation. And a lot of times that's the mentality. Very hierarchical. Like very, it's always, and really the hierarchy is very sort of strong in this. I mentioned the podium, I mentioned that everything's coming up to that peak. So yeah, there's definitely trades involved in that.
That makes sense too, because like we're dependent on tradespeople. Like our whole society is built upon like what they choose to lead us in. Like if they don't decide to build, we have nothing, at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's kind of it. Um, Again, it's that sense of the masses of the people, especially when we get into the Capricorn side. It's just all these little critters need a leader. It's kind of the way Uttara Falguni, and so you've got to find work for them. You've got to find something for them to do as well. That kind of thing. And a lot of it's carpentry and trade people and building things. Yeah. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, right? This guy, I don't know if you've seen him. He had the 2x4 over his shoulder. He was the carpenter wrestler dude. Jack Plant, I'm not sure. I think he was an electrician actually. He was also into a trade. So you get a few. Mike Tofino, he builds houses, does developing, things like that. Ray Dolby, he puts
And
sound, all that into trades. Go ahead.
and in the fourth house too, like he's building homes, Mike Toff, right? So that
Yeah,
applies
yeah, there we go. I think Jeffrey Epstein was also into a lot of property development and things like that as well. Um,
on islands, right?
exactly, yeah. Um, and he was like, Sun is harsh in the fourth house typically. It's like they're the boss of the house, these people. They're the king of the castle. And so Jeffrey Epstein, no doubt, was the king of the castle. Stonewall Jackson, he was a military guy, no doubt, king of the castle type dude as well. It's funny, even I look at the women. Hanine's also, she's the boss woman, man. She's king. Yeah. So like this. She just sent me a message. I haven't talked to her in years and years. Lebanese woman used to come to Varanasi every year, and I haven't seen her in jeepers years. But friends come. I meet a Lebanese person in India, and I get talking, and I just have to say, "Oh, you know Hanine?" And they go, "Yes, of course I know Hanine." So she's very, very well known. If you ever go into Lebanon, she probably leads the well, probably more than that, but the kind of consciousness community, whatever they have in Lebanon, for all that kind of stuff. We got others here. Kevin Costner, he's also very much like the boss man. He's doing that Tombstone now, I think. That cowboy show where he's the big, like, almost mob boss cowboy man, the big man. So we get that sort of stuff. I don't know how the big Chris Brusgard, the midwife, so he might have also had some boss man sort of stuff. Joan of Arc. So you're seeing some very powerful sort of people here in the sixth house. So this is maybe like Jesus was kind of the leader of thieves, the leader of criminals. He was looking like, it doesn't matter. Anybody can follow me and anybody can redeem themselves. And anybody, no matter how much of a critter you are or were, you can rise up and become a king. So there's some of that going on here as well. Again, some physicists. Jean Cabot, David Lynch, Alfredo Ferrari. Got a bunch of question marks here, but when I looked at Jean Cabot, he was like one of the Charlie Hobo illustrators. He was really sort of vain and like, I'll do what I want and I can make what I want. It's interesting that I think the image he drew actually, it's just occurred to me. He was the guy who drew the image. And I think it was like the elephant in the room kind of image was the terrorist with the bomb, the Mohammedan with the bomb or something like that. Actually, I think it was actually very much like that. So anyways, that got him killed, right? So that wasn't very fun. I mentioned the mathematicians and physicists we've got going on here. There's got to be a problem here because I've got Yurichi Namiro, physicist beside Muhammad Ali. And I don't think they've got the same son. But maybe. Horse racing, construction. Got a lot of construction guys here and guys building, road builders as well. That kind of thing. Piercing the ground. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Sorry. Yeah, anyways, we'll move on. Anyways, just piercing the ground and road work and things like that, and the things that are in the ground. There's a certain sense of that as well coming in here. Not sure what those guys have in common. Here we're coming, this is into the 9th house. Got a lot of wellness sort of stuff. Retrozan Cabo. Just very I think this brings a lot of sort of pride into their beliefs. We don't see that they're necessarily spiritual people, although Maggie H was quite spiritual, and Dharmendra Shukastar, he was hanging out at the ashram kind of thing. We see Jim Carrey with his own sort of spirituality going on, but Jean Cabot is, I think he's got Jupiter also in his, just pull his chart up quick here. Yeah, so he's got the Jupiter debilitated there as well. So that was his kind of dirty man. Jupiter debilitated, there's like they're very dirty, they're unkept, it's kind of like things get cluttered in a sense. It's like everything boils down to 10 commandments. But these guys are like, oh, but then there's that, and there's the other thing, and this kind of thing. But ultimately for them, the biggest, most dominating person sort of wins. Here we get Pope Gregory with his calendar here. Martin Luther King, really big movements that they started. Geez, like I said, he set the calendar. Martin Luther King set the human rights movement. Heidi's actually had a lot of influence on the tantra and tantric speed dating type stuff and bringing that stuff out. There might be a sense with some of these people. Anyways, there might be a sense here too. Again, we talk about lifting up the masses, but there's that maybe something in here, not quite, but that's some sense of redemption in here, or some way of people making things right. The justice perhaps gets related to here to a certain degree, but not that it's like born again almost. It's like you're able to come up out of that mud, I guess, and rise up beyond the masses. Ben Franklin again, Project America, and that sort of sense of the constitutional rights that came in. Statesman, Renaissance patrons, Al Capone, Jeffrey Epstein, Jacques Plant. And these are big boss guys. These are connected to the highest people in the land. In a lot of ways. very powerful connections. Profits from crime, prostitution, connected with proper people, central figure in the whole network of criminals. Diane Foisey, the apes and gorillas, they're not, and while she might have had some criminal connections as well, she was a lot into the conservationists, and so the criminal ivory collectors and the people even killing elephants in Africa and all of that. So she was kind of fighting against that, but when we think of criminals and we think of sixth house, those sixth house are people that are below us. They're beneath us to some degree. So what's sort of happening is the apes are kind of like beneath her. There's a bit of subhumanness in this. And so, yeah. Lost his son, Ampere, lost his father to guillotine at age 8, and his wife died prematurely. So a lot of death and a lot of loss from authority. I got a question mark beside Michelle Obama's name there, but these, she's got some very powerful people here too, behind the scenes kind of powers. Benjamin Franklin, he was in front of the scenes, but you get a lot of power here. Midwife Michelle Obama. Yeah, I get a sense it's just that strong sense of human rights. What ruler is this? But anyways, a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes here, is what I would expect with this sun. But somehow these people don't negotiate well. When these people negotiate, it's like a king negotiating with a serf. In a way, it's right. It's Al Capone is the one negotiating here in a sense, and so it's any afflictions to this at all, and it can be kind of harsh. Even I look at Heidi; she's a beautiful person, but she doesn't negotiate. She's the boss, and she makes the rules, and that's the way it is. Take it or leave it. So there is a lot of that sort of sense here. We get to the moon here. There's with the classic position of authority, sovereignty, seeing the light sort of thing. So it's not quite a born again, but similar. It's that seeing the light. And this is ruled by the sun. So I've written a lot about each pada here. Yeah, I've written a lot about Uttara Ashadha. Once we get down into this, each planet here, let's just look at the names and then we'll go through it there again. What are we? So we got about, okay, we got time. Well, I don't think I've ever said that. We've got time, but we got time. In this class. So we get with the moon here. This is that culture of top dog when the moon is here. Well, we're gonna crash again, I think. So it's that culture of top dog. The king, the emperor of China, Charlemagne, big popes. We've got even Pavlov, behaviorism, conditioning. We saw the primatologist as well. That was coming up a lot. Behaviorism was coming a lot in this, and so how to shape and make behavior work. Really big actors: Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, Michael Shermer. Just had everything. I think he was an army guy. I can't remember. Fashion designers, just people like they're used to the culture of kind of opulence. They're used to the culture of being they're kshatriya, but being one of the leaders of society, you could say. And then on the Sagittarius side, it's kshatriyas, but they're popes as well, kind of warrior popes to a certain degree, leader popes. And then when we get on the Capricorn side, we get again more bankers. Lots of bankers have this. Airships, Zeppelin has this evolutionary biology sort of also, like at least Charlotte Darwin, there's some neo-evolutionists that neo-Darwinists would sort of see it different, but one of the things of evolution was that evolution is working towards a kind of perfection. It's always getting better, it's always improving. And so there's, of course, there's that sort of sense in Uttara Ashadha. The microorganisms as well. We see a lot, saw a lot of biologists, a lot of people kind of looking in at the Purva Ashadha and then Uttara Ashadha. I get a sense that Purva Ashadha is much more the liquids and the fluids of the blood. There must be some, whereas Uttara Ashadha seems to be the solids that are in that liquid to a certain like way. Anyways, the little critters and stuff. There was some critters. Maybe it was more of the hormones and the things that dissolve in the water in Purva Ashadha, and Uttara Ashadha is the things that don't dissolve in the water in the blood. You know what I mean? Like the hormones and things like that, they just dissolve into the blood, into the tissues. Because there's still some wateriness in this to a certain degree because of all these biologists. Anyway, so we get
You're cutting out like a lot, Mike.
oh, am I? Okay. Anyways, I'll talk about the internet. Hopefully, maybe we can get that fixed by next week. That way you can hear me. I'm doing pretty good again now. You seem to be moving.
Yeah, now it seems a little better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like all of the last two paragraphs, like kind of ungraspable.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, I was just talking about the theory of evolution coming to perfection. Ultimately.
Right, that makes sense because it's coming from Sagittarius into Capricorn, right? So the idea of it is becoming kind of fabric, I guess, at this point, or materializing in Capricorn.
Well, that's sort of the hierarchical nature of Uttara Ashadha. And that's kind of evolution. At least, like I said, Darwin's theories of evolutions were very hierarchical. There's neo-Darwinists that have sort of like, well, maybe evolution's not coming to a peak of perfection. But that's one of the theories. And so that's the theory that matches with this, anyways. So we see these fighters. It's interesting, there's quite a few blind singers, blind vocals, blind actors, a lot of blindness going on here as well. Again, we get the lead singers. A lot of them have this. Might be interesting to see some of James Ensor's surrealist art. There were a couple surrealists here as well. Anyway, they'll come up, but I think Dolly had some placements here as well. Someone like Ayn Rand, her objectivism was really a strong sort of individualism, which she was promoting. Christina Onassis, she had a shipping company. There was a shipping and logistics that comes up a lot in here. Again, it might be the shipping and the waterways in that sense of the roads. We saw some road builders there as well. Yeah, anyways, these kind of things, trying to universalize the laws, maybe. Here we go. The people I know, like there's only, well, 3 of them I know quite good. They're all doing massage, Ayurveda. A couple of them are into acupuncture, but kind of high level doctors of Ayurveda, doctors of acupuncture, that kind of thing. We mentioned the journalism, the people trying to get at the truth to a certain degree. Was it Ben Franklin and Abraham Lincoln both have this? JFK. So you see a lot of really idealistic, leaders with this. We see a few of these child sex abusers coming out. People are, right, they're going to abuse their authority occasionally as well. Probably what's more of the case. We talked about that sense too of like the really big leader up there and all the little children down there, for example. It's another way to see all those little critters running around. people working with children, I'm sure you would find that as well. Don't want to say just child sex abusers, but people working with children would also have this.
Why is that?
Because of the sense of like being the big one up here and all those little people below me. Um, like a kindergarten teacher in a sense. One, there is a couple giants that have this. And then of course, when you get into the boxers, the wrestlers, the fighting, these are big people. And so it often is that sort of sense of like that sense of duty and responsibility to a certain degree. They come into here. They have a responsibility to all those little people around them. And so I think my problem is I just don't know a lot of people working with children and that kind of thing. But I'm sure there's a lot more kind of teachers, and especially kindergartens when it's a big age gap like that. I'm sure you're going to find some with those placements. So yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte, Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court judges, big military commanders.
So you're spot on about the moon and working with children. Like my best friend, he's got the moon in Uttara Ashadha and his Saturn there. And he works as a school teacher, and he does better with the younger kids than he does with the older ones. But as he's mastering his craft, he's good with all the kids, you know? So
yeah, the giant in
and,
the room, the
yeah,
elephant in the room.
and he always mentions too how much like he's the dictator. It's his class, you know, like he likes being that boss and in charge and having that full control of that class.
Yeah, they're my kids, they're my students,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then and he's attached to that too. Like he likes that. So it's then he's got a Mars in Ashwini, so that kind of makes it a little more interesting. Where just like he's got no boundaries in a way on what he can do.
Very active. The Ashwini also helps with the childlike nature, and he can
Right. He
vitality.
plays with them. Yeah.
Yeah, do a lot of crazy things, and so no, yeah, exactly like that. So what we're seeing here, these are like, geez, a lot of these people are almost larger than life, really, like Napoleon Bonaparte and right, Steve McQueen and the actors that I Cary Grant and Russell Crowe, like these guys are big characters. Danielle Steele, even in the working. So again, in different ways, right? This is out in the big wide world, but in the classroom, you get this as well. So we'll kind of cruise through here. Pope John has moon in his ascendant. Here we see Brad Pitt in the second. Kind of cruising through this. So yeah, great. I don't know if your friend has fifth house placements. Great love can children, can lose themselves in play, make good teachers, early educationists. Fifth house. Yeah.
Yeah, his sun, his Jupiter, his Mercury are all in Punarvasu in the fifth house.
Oh, Punarvasu.
Yeah, in the fifth house.
Okay, so yeah, okay. So that's something different than going on. That would put
But
it
it's still in the fifth house though, right?
Punarvasu or Uttara Ashadha?
Well, he's got Uttara Ashadha in the 11th, and then
Yeah.
he's got his sun in Punarvasu in the 5th.
Yeah, that would come out different.
Okay.
Is it all on the Sagittarius side or the Capricorn side?
Capricorn side.
Okay. So let's zip over to the Capricorn side because there's not much going on in Sagittarius. Just not many people have it. So in the ascendant, yeah, Russell Crowe, he grew up on these movie sets. His parents were providing, they were getting inside where nobody else could get. There was that sense of exclusiveness. So they're getting inside where nobody else could get to provide, to protect, to feed people. And I think there is that sense of penetration here. They are able to get in into where others can't. With this moon. Yeah, here we're finding it related to Greek novelist, Greek history. Tracy also does philosophy. I think there's some connection. Gilles Villeneuve, I don't know if that's correct or not. But I think there's some connection with languages and ancient languages to a certain degree, and trying to get that like perfected. A lot of practice sort of, and dealing with languages, dealing with histories, kind of classic history sort of idea comes through that. When moon's in the second and the third house, the steady rhythm of global reports, global announcements, things like this. Comfortable, there's a sort of team sort of energy going on here as well, that they're comfortable with. We're seeing these fighters, we're seeing that sense of the perfection in the team. And so there probably would be some competitiveness in the team. Everybody's trying to help each other improve and help each other get better. In the fourth, I would expect this to be quite a teaching. Yeah, the 10th Lord in the fourth, but teaching from home maybe, or something like that. Not necessarily a teacher going out in the world, or someone making kind of house calls type thing. These people, the 10th Lord in the fourth house, they're comfortable being at home. They're a lot of times they're working at home, but they could be like stay-at-home moms or that kind of thing, because they're used to that rhythm of education, that rhythm of going to school, but also the rhythm of like, it might not necessarily be like a public school, like a private school, or like a religious school, religious upbringing kind of thing, when they were younger. And I know Shaiston, she went to like Muslim, like a all Muslim school when she was young. Jenny, I know she went to Catholic school when she was young. The other ones I'm not too sure about. Some of these biologists, I gotta say, a lot of them didn't have good birth times. And so I'm still sort of working some of that out with some of these guys, but he could very well be a teacher. Robert Hooke probably is teaching. Bright lights, big stage kind of stuff in the fifth house, just that comfortable being out in front of everybody and making yourself known and being seen. This would also, there would be an investment side to this as well, because this is the 11th Lord dealing with finances, and so it's kind of, well, it's bringing everybody to the stage, but that speculative finance would also be here. Yeah, there's that. Anyways, very creative, as we can see, good songwriters, that sort of thing, good poets would be there as well, but there would be something in the speculation. There we go, in the sixth house. Moon, and so that's that sort of 12th Lord in the sixth house. And so this is bringing losses and things like that. Losses from crimes, losses from disabilities, things like that. I'm not sure that Bryan Adams has this or not, but we see it with a blind singer, we see it with a healthcare provider. And there's a lot of imbalanced losses from divorces, losses from broken contracts. A lot of that kind of thing would come up with that moon. First Lord in the seventh house. This is something I realized something about First Lord in the seventh house recently. I don't think they consider it good. Yeah, it's not considered good. They say a lot of bad things about it. First Lord in the seventh house. And one of the things I realized about this is a lot like a debilitated sun, actually, because this is the identity going out and having to please and find agreement and it's going out and you're kind of losing yourself to the other person. You're losing that sense of identity to the other and going out there like that to a certain degree. And this is what something like, see, Mr. Cool, Steve McQueen, that's kind of what being cool is. If we talk about like being the cool guy in high school, these are the people that they're not themselves. Their focus is on to please people and to make others sort of happy. And so they lose their sort of individuality in order to make others happy. Is what we see kind of going on here. And well, Indira Gandhi was kind of killed by doing that, right? She didn't want to upset the Sikhs and get rid of her Sikh bodyguards. She just wanted to keep everybody happy, and she ended up dying for that. Yeah, some investment bankers here. This has me questioning. I've got the big question mark beside that. This has me wondering maybe the investment banker has Moon in 5th house. And Bitcoin, well, founder of the presumed founder of Bitcoin, I should add. So this is what a birth chart of a person we don't even know if they exist. But that's okay. They have a story. So, and that story relates. We get some in the 8th house where I think what we're getting here is some of that deductive logic. Here, that Moon is sort of comfortable, kind of looking at Arthur Conan, the Sherlock Holmes detective novel, that sense of deduction, mathematics, physics, architecture. That's also kind of dealing with that process of deduction and elimination to a certain degree. And Uttara Ashadha is always doing that. It's chipping away, right? That process, it is kind of that process of elimination. So here in the 9th house, that Moon, it's getting more global. What have we got here? Christy Brinkley, illustrators, knowledge. So they are bringing more of the, I don't know, it's more of the global teams. I see it in Beckham, maybe like working, playing soccer for teams or that kind of thing. Try a code, Cook.
He kind of transcended his teams though. Like you kind of like he sticks out, right?
Yeah, there is a certain, he's a little bit beyond everybody else, used to being on top. Comes from a very, what can you say, privileged family. As well. That's a word I haven't used it. I've been looking for it all class actually. Privilege is actually a word that often relates with this as well. These people are all privileged in some way, even if it's like you say your friend is the teacher. He's got he's way ahead of all those kids, right? And that gives them a lot of privileges, whether they're earned or not.
And even like just in his life in general is something we talk about. Like, yeah, like he lives a very privileged life, you know, like his family's together. There's no hardcore traumas or anything like that. He's a white male and in Canada in the teacher industry. So it's just he gets a lot of privilege for that and he's aware of that, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's Moon and Uttara Ashadha. So in the 10th house, it's going to provide a lot of honor and that kind of thing. Robert Kennedy, 4th Lord. Oh, that's providing the space and the healing space as well to a certain degree. Acupuncturist we have there, Robert F. Kennedy. And we're seeing rockets, and things like that here as well. I wonder if it's not the bullet as well. We're seeing all these sort of phallic shaped things penetrating, the bullets penetrating. So there's these sorts of ideas coming up as well. I did see a lot here as well as a lot of not just communists, but a lot of like alternative type governments, utopian type governments as well. That idea of utopia really seemed to come out and play a big part here in this in this position. Yeah, here's the shamanic healers and the Ayurveda teaching. You said your friend's the 11th house and the Capricorn, and so we've got some other teachers here. But these are, again, teaching Ayurveda and teaching shamanism, sound healing as well going on here.
So what's happening right now in his life is the Ontario School Board is becoming aware of like how new teachers and new parents want to teach more about nature. So he actually inherited a program that he gets to design and work on how to integrate nature teachings principles within the school system.
The laws of nature.
Yeah,
Those kids. Yeah. Beautiful. And so that is, I think, what these people are working with more is the laws of nature. And that kind of thing. And in the 11th house, there's gonna be awards. These are people that are used to getting awards or giving awards, and all of that kind of thing as well. Oh, I see our internet connection's unstable. So we'll get into the Mars here. This is a lot of courage. Again, it's similar. Mars and Sun always have a lot of similarities because of that heat and that fire that's coming into these nakshatras. So which they have a lot of courage and power, they can freely share with others without any concern of depletion, unless the Mars is badly affected by aspect, association, position. They're shrewd people, great yogis, therapists like Krishnamacharya. That was basically yoga therapy. BKS Younger is also kind of a yoga therapy. That's interesting. These unique, everybody, what's coming up here a lot is kind of a unique teachers, right? Teaching sort of outside of the system a little bit or something like that. Well, they become the system ultimately, but they seem to start off by working outside of it. Great minds like Einstein, L. Ron Hubbard, Transplant Sherman, Charles Starzl, Jeff Bezos. So we're going to think these people have a really critical mind, really, really sharp. Show the rest of us how we can accomplish so much more if we just connect everything together. Fire planets like Sun and Mars both give strong alpha characteristics. Mars, these characteristics can seem like the ones in competition. They usually have very elite level in their craft, whatever it may be. They're a hardy group of people. Many of them are active in the bush, the mountains, the forests. They'll do the work to get to the top. That's also climbing the mountain and climbing the hills. They'll climb the hill to see the sunset, so that they have to walk home in the cold and dark. A lot of sense of self-sacrifice here. They usually have good mechanical and technical abilities. Find a couple are reserved for fine artists, but they're not the pussycats in the studios. These are the ones out in the elements of getting the nature. So we'll look at the names here. I don't know if you still sort of follow along with what I've sent you, but I'm sure you can see by now I've added quite a bit. And it's been only about 3 or 4 months since I think I sent you guys that stuff. So there's been lots added. So there'll be lots. I'll send it again when the course is all done, and then you'll have it. So we see these really yoga therapies, kind of music type therapies. Even Queen Bloody Mary, she was trying to purify the religion, the Christian religion, right? So she killed a whole bunch. I can't remember what side of the coin she was on, but she killed all the others. So there's that sense. Some photographers, more yogis, more yogis, more yogis. A lot of them are doing quite a unique branch of yoga too. When I look at some of these folks, oh, we mentioned that's what it is. Uttara Ashadha. Yeah, a lot of them are involved. When I look at these names, a lot of them are sort of involved in the kind of what we'd say like Ayurveda or tantric healing type stuff as well. Yeah, Aleister Crowley, right? That sense of magic. BKS Younger. We get some chemists sort of doing. Lots of chemists have placements here. Chemists and what was the other? Pharmacists. I think again, there's a sort of sense of getting high. It's like, and it's not every kind of, not every kind of getting high is the same. We use getting high a lot, but there's a sort of a getting stoned. There's that, like, I don't know, when you take pharmaceuticals, for example, like, ooh, you're floating, right? And there's that sort of floatiness, that sort of uplifted, that sort of thing coming in here as well. So from the drugs and the microbiology, seems like the people who are making those things. But then you get the gurus trying to quite seriously like uplift people and uplift the masses. Even Bob Marley, a Rastafarian. Nicolas Cage, I think he's also follows Dianetics as well, I think. Him and Tom Cruise. I think they're both Dianetics guys. So there is some things like this. You see very sexuality. It's interesting when I look at some of these names, there is the banking really comes in involved in here as well. George Paul Lehman, of course, a banker, but Rodney, he was all into banking and finance. Lizette's last name is Mercado. Her father and the men she's around are all accountants and things like that. Yeah, interesting. So Prince Andrew of Rourke, that's the disgraced loyal. He was kind of involved with Epstein. And it's funny, I've been looking at his chart and I've been looking at all of this, and I really get a sense that well, even the papers have sort of said, oh, Prince Andrew did this or he did that, and he was friends of Epstein. I think he was probably the boss of that whole thing, actually. Anyway, so then we get Albert Einstein, Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, these like founders, Amazon, Google, right? Einstein. These are really big founders. Emily Carr and Henry Matisse. Those were kind of the couple of the rare sort of painter type artists. But these people, you do see that sort of sense of pixelation. That sense of bigness comes into their works. So Mia Farrow, primate scientist, Christina Onassis dealing with shipping and things like that. So whenever you're dealing with shipping, there's also a bit to deal with the storage and the banking as well. I get a sense this is the elephant. I was just trying to figure out recently, what with the pig? Who is the pig in this? And I get a sense there might be some of the pig here as well. If we think of the piggy bank, and the elephant is very pig-like in its ways. Anyways, that has some importance in some other areas, but I think there is that pig in the sense of pig, and pork also comes into here, and the piggy bank kind of thing. There's quite a few I've noticed also in some of my friends that have this, like Hoy Seal. He's what is he? He's like a heavy duty mechanic, trained in the army, so he's fixing I think he was fixing airplanes and things like that. There was another mechanic, a parts person. Yeah, my cousin, she does auto parts. She also does the nails type stuff. That's where some of that came in. Dene's also into nails. I know she has very pretty nails. Anyway, some of these people like that. Shakira, all those very beautiful nails that they have. But there are, when we get into this, we got the computer engineers and things like that. But I think you also get like mechanical engineers, you get mechanics, people working with the auto parts and things like that. Dr. Death, he was doing the experimentations. And so we could think of, I think when Mars is here, it's that mechanical sort of thing. So he is the surgeon, get some physicians, chemists, especially it seems with this fourth pada, a lot of that. And so they're dealing with the different parts of the body in a sense. And so this is the physician who's doing like the autopsy or whatever, in a sense like that. In the same way, I think we get these mechanics and the people dealing with auto parts and the different parts of the body, the different parts of reality in a sense. Again, those laws of nature, those laws of mechanics kind of come in here. Oh, there's L. Ron Hubbard that did Dianetics. So we also get some oh yeah. We get there also, it seems as Mars is a little bit crazy conspiracy theorist as well. There's a little bit of that coming in into this as they're trying to sort of look at all the different parts and try to figure things out.
Can we do Nicolas Cage?
Is he a conspiracy theorist?
Well, he's Mars in Capricorn, and he's
Yeah.
not, but like the craziness is there, and I see a bit of that with Drew Barrymore, with Woody Allen, with Shakira, Bob Marley. They just got a little bit of this kind of kink kind of going on, I find.
Yeah, they're all out there a little bit. Yeah,
Not too much, but like just enough, you know?
yeah, they are. They're just a little bit different. Um, and that's that Mars maybe bringing them to top, allowing them to be a little bit more unique. Uh, very intelligent. When you look at all these people, though, very, very intelligent, highly intelligent. And it's kind of like, well, what does Mars have to do with intelligence? But it's maybe this ability, this coordination, the ability, the movement. And so I don't know, maybe just being able to move through things.
Mars in Capricorn is exalted as well, right?
Yeah.
So it would have that, and I think it's like it's the idea to strategize that drive and that energy that kind of comes from Mars.
Yeah,
I
that
think.
productivity is also there as well. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of his exaltation there, but yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, and so yeah, a lot of sort of dancers, very active kind of people, a lot of them. Um, but a little bit out there, a little bit crazy. Right, Dan Foy's like all these people are a little bit out there, especially when we get to this
Yeah.
fourth pada. It seems really they're getting way out there when we get here. Um, yeah, banker panic, stock crash. It is almost that banker's panic to a certain degree. With that, interesting. So New Zealand, they're going the Mars in the second. What is he rolling? The first and the sixth. Let's get someone like Krishnamacharya, King Henry the Fifth. I think he was a pretty good king, Henry the Fifth. Bloody Mary in the third. So this is the force of arms, Mars in the third house here. I think part of it is being able to deal with tools, but I think that's that bloodiness of the army and using the arms and the force, like sense of it's not a in this chart, Mars would not be a good planet. He's not a good planet for people with Libras. They're very peaceful people where the Mars is looking for the fight. And so that fight, that aggressive mentality of Mars in the third house, that don't even want to call it courage when it's there. It's just it's kind of brutal in a sense. And this is the Sagittarius side, so it hasn't quite got to the exaltation side where it's really putting things together. Here it seems like it's a little bit scattered. Yeah, in the first pada, it's like things haven't come together yet. Some really tough women: Jane Austen, Queen Bloody Mary, Dana Gonzalez, as well. Sarah, yeah, some of them are Vedic astrologers, actually. At least Sarah is. Very active on the world stage, but well, maybe, yeah. I know a couple are quite travelers. He's sort of mechanic, but he's also guru, sort of a figure. Daniel Hoffman. I get a sense some of these people are they're very technical minded sort of people. It's like there's not a lot of, if we think of this as like human rights, there's not a lot of heart in their human rights. It's like they are kind of using that in some way, weaponizing it, using it to their best advantage. Not that they're necessarily bad people, but Mars is sort of theories of, what could you say, therapeutic theories in a sense. It is very therapeutic. It's very that active, that trying to heal, using the beliefs to heal almost. Anyways, we'll get to Capricorn. We've got a few more names to work with. In the first house, I didn't have anybody with Mars and Uttara Ashadha, just the bankers' panic stock crash. Mars was there. And so that was very volatile. Mars isn't a great planet for Capricorn ascendants, but they would be very active. We got a country musician, Indian martial arts action guy, a banker, an actor, really sort of broad people. I don't really know what brings them together. Mars. Yeah, on the fourth house here, we got what, second and seventh. Again, when it's in the fourth, it's still not a good house. Here I would expect that the home just to be changing and shifting quite regularly. Sports car kind of people is what I would think here. I know Rodney is, Nicolas Cage is from the moon. It's certainly sports car people. I'm not sure about some of the others. Yeah, a lot of they would have land and buildings. He's got the ashram. Let's look at Iyengar's chart very quickly. So I haven't looked at his chart in a while. Birth time was unknown, so I slapped this. So other quick rectification. And here we go on Moon. If we look at Mars in the 10th house, this is his career, and this is his, anyways, really active and sort of career and really physical. And really it is the best man sort of wins to a certain degree in his field. A lot of competition. He was in a lot of competition with some of the other yoga gurus. Very competitive that way. But this is very productive, there's a lot of coordination when Mars is exalted. These people don't miss a step usually. There's no, like, nothing gets wasted. Everything has a point. Everything seems to be doing something. Fifth house here, especially for Moon, we see a lot of physicians. Interesting to see Martin D. He does some music therapy, actually. He's like an old hippie musician sort of guy. So interesting to see him in with these guys. Now I'm feeling like we gotta hurry. Don't seem to have much for Mars. Come on, I'll have more for Mercury, I think. So when we look at Mercury in Uttara Ashadha, the Mercury in Sagittarius is usually quite philosophical, but it's not, it's more maybe psychology than philosophy. In a lot of ways, yeah. We do get Ayn Rand is considered a philosopher, but nobody takes her philosophy serious as a philosophy. She was kind of a novelist in a way. And that's kind of immature philosophy sort of thing. An immature sort of sense of rights and hierarchy. But it is also, I think, working with youth and the adolescents. We see someone like Jeffrey Epstein here. I don't know if he was working with beauty pageant type things like that. Zaza Gabor most likely was. But that sense of like putting the adolescence on a podium in a sense, grading the adolescence in a way, measuring the youth, or sort of, yeah, getting into the youth, I guess. Jeffrey Epstein's case, quite literally penetrating the youth. Zaza Gabor as well. She was a young beauty queen when she was young. That was how she got started to get recognized. Things like that. Gina Jarvis, she does some somatic therapies and things like that. Mike Tofino, again, land developer, but also working on water, boats, docks, that kind of stuff. Oh, there would be. We saw with the shipping, so boats, docks, harbors, that kind of thing also gets involved with Uttara Ashadha. We're seeing more kind of bankers and statesmen, right? Habsburg, Glenn, he's a general, getting a lot of, these are kind of games players as well. What are the rules to the game? The great game. In his case, Cary Grant, Gene Hopkins. Yeah, golf. In some sense, I think these people are involved, even if they kind of look at people that would look at life as a game to a certain degree. And so these list of rules, like I said, are the list of rules for the great game. So how to get to the top, that 10 steps sort of to get to the top. I'm sure Jeffrey Epstein, it was very clear. Are you dealing with him? How do you want to get to the top? Oh, I know. That kind of thing. I did notice too, well, maybe not, but there was kind of a lot of early death with a lot of these Uttara Ashad placements, because what they're doing is in life, like theoretically they're getting into the theories, but in actual reality, they're getting out into areas that they kind of don't have any rules in a sense. They're making the rules up as they go along to a certain degree. And then Mercury and Uttara Ashadha, I think, is especially like that, where they don't really know the rules. So they're making them up as they go along and trying to put them together.
I would, as a Mercury Uttara Ashadha, I would say that it's not that we don't know the rules, it's we know that no one else knows the rules, so that we might as well just create our own.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So yeah, that's kind of it. So yeah, that's like Heidi started doing these like speed datings and started making her own rules for tantric sex dating and things like that. And really that's what you see. Echo sort of does something similar, makes up these, she does a lot of improv, actually. Improv games is what Echo's into. Again, making the rules up as you go. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how many of these actors are especially good at improv acting, for example. And that might come in with this Mercury, is more of that improvisation.
I was the improv captain of my high school improv team.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, there you go. You can find Echo on my Instagram somewhere. She's lovely. I did some improv with her. I was getting up there. We were doing that kind of stuff.
I think you'd be good for it too, for sure.
Yeah, anyways, I always brought the front. There's like, you've got the person who always wants to say something sick, and you've got the person who always wants to say something really wild and crazy, and then you've got the guy who always wants to bring it back to philosophy. I'm not really great on improv in a lot of ways. When people start going all crazy, I'm always like, I'm kind of too practical.
Your personality though, like you'll go along with it kind of thing and you'll play, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I'm not a big fan of silly. Right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
yeah, I have a tough time getting in because improv often gets very, very silly, and I have a hard time getting into the silliness. Um, yeah. So there's that. So, anyways, these Mercury guys are just making up like improv as best they can. Cicero, he was one of the greatest orators of all times. Uh, I learned a lot about rhetoric and things like that through Cicero. He was really wonderful. Um, Interesting thing about Cicero is he was trying to defend the Senate in Rome against the dictators, basically. So he was trying to maintain the power of the Senate to a certain degree here. And so we've seen how Sun and some of those other planets really sort of take all the power to themselves. Here I get the sense in Mercury, they want to share the power a little bit. We're a group, we're a team here. Let's like work together. Like that to a certain degree. And so, well, look at these guys. Physics, string theory, Stephen Hawking, physiology, nerve impulses, more physicians. Like these guys are there's an intelligent bunch. But I think what we're also seeing is some, even in their studies, maybe in their research, like Kyle Rittenhouse, inserting himself in there from outside, right? And so even the gene therapies and trying to figure out these sorts of things, a lot of what they're doing is they put something in from outside in there and see how it reacts. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting the hiccups. Keeps up, I might have to call it a class. And so then you've got someone like Simone de Beauvoir, avant-garde relationships. I wouldn't be surprised if she had a few threesomes. Again, someone inserting themselves in there from outside. Greta Thunberg going around there, she really puts herself in the middle of things as well, where she doesn't belong. Japan Meiji, the Constitution of Japan, was also this wasn't a freely written constitution. This was after World War II, after they got their ass kicked, and that was a constitution that was basically made by imperial powers. So again, that coming in from outside and making up the rules, and nobody knew what the rules should be, so they just made them up as they went along. So we got a lot of that. Bipin Bharti, our great Vedic astrologer, making up rules as we go along. Thanks, Bipin Bharti. And I obviously have some of that going on myself because I'm just making this all up as I go along. So like Bob Marley, a Rastafarian poet, yeah, just doing it. Johnny Rotten, Sex Pistols, punk guys. Again, unique kind of ways. Burt Reynolds is Smokey and the Bandit kind of stuff. So we get a lot of that kind of stuff. I noticed
Bitcoin too is kind of like they're making it up as they go along. Like they created something and it's like freaking random how it works, right?
yeah, they were out there for a while anyways. They were out there alone in the hinterlands they didn't know what was going on. They're just doing it. So there is a lot of that. Yeah, lots of people dealing with finances. They're obviously very good with numbers and things like that, mathematics, all of that's very, very strong. It seems Mercury in Sagittarius seems generally strong in mathematics. This is the Sagittarius side, so there's not going to be much. Oh, here we got some dancers anyways. Why are they dancing? Mercury, kids. Oh, that's that big masses of students. Chart toppers. Speak like the boss. This is also, oh, that was the other thing. There's something about Uttara Ashadha. Remember I talked about that shape of the Christmas tree, right? Kind of coming in like this. This is also the megaphone. these people often have a megaphone to speak or to say, and whoa, it goes out, they're speaking to the masses, right? And so there is that sort of megaphone. I know Jenna Jarvis, she's one of these yoga teachers, or I don't know what she teaches exactly, but she's got like this, she's got the whole headset on, and she's like, she's up there dancing and they're doing the Zumba. And I don't know what they're doing, but she's got the megaphone up there, like Elvis Presley up there, whatever he says to do, people are just kind of following as well to a certain degree. So improv, we might think of something like line dancing and things like that, these sorts of things, or even I wonder if there wouldn't be some kirtan involved with some of this as well. That was right. There was a lot of this back and forth kind of thing going on in Uttara Ashadha. Yeah, like the shipping. There are some other things. Anyways, a lot of that kind of thing. Again, it was the washerman, thump, 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 the construction guy, thump, 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 thump. It's this almost a lever movement, right? I think there is something to this movement in Uttara Ashadha that we can pay attention to.
And for like I do kirtans, and like I'm the drummer.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
thump, thump, yeah. Just keeping the beat to a certain degree, yeah. So it's that. Ryan Rand, Tom Selleck, Carl Rogers. We got Zsa Zsa Gabor, married 9 times. Yeah. There's just not enough names to really work with on the Sagittarius side. Got their Epstein is here. I don't know if that's correct. Election Elvis Presley, Ronald Reagan. Forget Ronald Reagan was also in show business. This might have to do with the kind of acting that the two were doing, because neither of them were very good actors. But they got in there. They got their megaphone to a certain degree. Denzel Washington. We just throw megaphones at these people. Let's see what we got on the Capricorn side. Yeah, these people certainly do get to have their say. Oh, there's Emmett. Just like Jackie Robertson, Gene Hackman, Cary Grant, Brandon Lee, and Dace's partner. I'm not sure about Dace's partner, but anyways, I think he's like, what do you call it? Like CIA. He's like I don't know. I was all getting all James Bond talking with Dace. And I think her boyfriend was basically like some kind of James Bond guy sort of thing, 007 kind of thing coming up there. There was something. Yeah, 007 came up other places in this as well. So you got these Marine Corps general, physiology, nervous system, great speakers, and the second house. Oh yeah, the really good speakers. Cicero, that's not really good at rhetoric, really good at fundraising, using their voice to raise funds, basically. Very, very good at that. To defend the people and the masses. Everybody's throwing in their dollar to a certain degree, I think. Yeah, here we go. Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg on that side of things. Zora's just a baby, so I don't know how that's going to work out. But I think the dad is involved in almost like movie productions and things like that. That kind of stuff. There's Echo with her improv. We get to the third house. What is it? Johnny Rotten. So this is very team orientated to a certain team, my band, my group, my crew, all of that, very orientated towards that sort of thing. Oh, I'm breaking up again. Um, anyway, so very, very team orientated like that. Some social criticism, my team versus your team. Oh, here we get some Bob Marley, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. A little bit of elitism. Again, that's that sense of kind of playing some games, making up the rules of the game as you go along. A certain degree there, yeah. Johnny Rotten, yeah, they all do that actually. A lot of this crowd is just making up those rules as they're going. There was a Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about the mongoose side of this. We haven't really talked too much about that as we've been going along, but Jennifer Aniston, like one of the things she's famous for is being single with single with no children, kind of thing. And she's this beautiful woman, um, like that. And so there is, I don't know about all of these, but there does seem to be a lot of singleness going on, except maybe, Cary Grant, he had a bit of a harem. Stephen Hawking's, he's probably impotent. So I might have to watch for impotence in here as well with some of these placements. I don't know if Mercury would cause that or not. Well, might be relate. Let's look at Stephen Hawking's chart for fun. Yeah, so he's got this going on in his third or fourth house. I'm not sure if his birth time is correct, but one of the things about this, we talked about its connection with the bones. I would say there's probably also a connection with the spinal cord as well. So that kind of thing comes in as well. Bone, spinal cord. So we see Stephen Hawking's injuries there coming in. I don't know. I lost him. I pushed a button, moved, but we'll just kind of cruise through Mercury here. We're at that part of the lesson where we just cruise through things now, right? Subhash Chandra Bose, he had some involvement, I believe, in writing the Constitution, making up the guy who makes up the laws as he goes, that kind of thing. Demonetization, the digitalization of money as kind of being moved through here. We see that with Bitcoin placements as well. Digitalization. Mercury can be currencies. Like that, central banks kind of idea comes in here.
My Mercury's in the 11th house, I believe, as well.
Oh, yours in the 11th. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any notes on this too much, but I look at a fashion designer. Elena's into Ayurveda and stuff. She's really, really good yogi. Spent a lot of time in the ashrams and stuff. One of my Narmada sisters, like that. Pasha Ma, he's just a kid. So I don't know, but judging by his parents, he's going to be probably I think he's going to be a kind of a cowboy, kind of thing like that, wandering the range and into yoga and spirituality and all that stuff, I think. Anything to add about in the 11th? Yeah, I've got you here with no.
Yeah, because we had switched my ascendant to Aquarius, so I think you got me in the 12th.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
okay.
I mean, they're both valid perspectives, I find.
Yeah, well, there can only be one right in the end, damn it.
All right. All right. Well, yeah, well, let's see what 12
Uttara
said I
Ashadha.
can.
There's only one answer. And anyways, you can't just make the rules up as you go along, man. Um, so, so we get that. Anyways, we'll go on to the next thing here. The Venus and Uttara Ashadha. Men with tonight might know a lot of professional women, strong, independent, intelligent, high achievers. They're trying to find some balance in it all, right? With the Venus, trying to find the harmony between everybody like that. Relationships can be strictly business with negotiations centered around truth, honesty, communication, right deals. Venus in Capricorn is 6th to 8th angle from Gemini, so sexual communication, small talk typically provides the first spark of desire, is actually a bit of a turnoff for these people since stories aren't truth. Anyways, I'm not sure. Well, okay, we'll see. Lovers of truth, I guess. You could say they'll have a man especially interested in the Venus woman seeking merit, leadership, rising, really powerful women. The men are usually looking for here. Might be known as gentlemen to a certain degree, perhaps working with women. Yeah, there can be a lot of that, where they're working with a lot of women, women in their job site, doing kind of women's work kind of thing. Go ahead.
So it would be now it's interesting because you're saying like there in Venus and Uttara Ashadha, there's one way of doing things. Like you just said the comment of like, no, there's only one true answer. But then in Mercury, it's we make it up as we go along. So it's interesting to kind of see that dynamic between Mercury and Venus.
Yeah, well, yeah, some of that as well. Venus does want to kind of unite things. It wants to find that balance, that sameness, like that. So
And Mercury's the child, right? The Mercury just wants to do his own thing. Venus wants to find that harmony. So finding the one truth is important, where a kid kind of doesn't care.
yeah,
Well,
because Venus wants, well, the sun of Uttara Ashadha wants the truth. Venus is sort of that trust. It wants to build that trust. And through building the trust, the truth will come out. Sort of idea. Or building the trust, you'll get picked as the one, because there's that winning choice in here. There's that choosing. So they want to get picked by building the trust. Mercury wants to get picked by sort of having some of the answers or asking the right questions. Maybe also putting the hand up as well, right? Like the little students do. And so there's that how are they getting picked? How are they getting the choice? With the sun, they're just the best. That's how they get picked. They make sure they're the best. With Mars, it might be they make sure they're the most competitive. That's how they get picked. You know, these kind of things. With Mercury, they play the best games, right? So that's how they get picked. So, oh, I love it. You guys just, yeah, you've just opened my mind with your questions so much. So Venus and Capricorn 668 are reminded that the fun and games can destroy the respect, reputation, and dignity that has been so carefully developed at the time and experience. It can be noted that the seriousness and work of Capricorn also destroys the lightness of the coffee break chatter of Gemini. So they're getting a little bit more serious. Again, this is, remember I said I don't like silliness. That's the Saturn in Uttara Ashadha. He has no time for silliness. He appreciates work. He appreciates merit. He wants the one who's done the most. That's what he appreciates. So forget this nonsense silliness, man. There's an answer.
And I want to be the silliest.
Yeah, yeah, almost. Yeah, and I would almost think if it's like a Jupiter, like a sort of Venus Mercury combination, or if there's any like Mercury Rahu, then you are going to get that almost wanting to be the silliest, wanting to have the best game, right? That's funny. I put it that way as well. You think of there's that. I used to see this book. It's in all the airport bookstores. I think it's called The Game. It's like a con artist pickup guide or something like that. That's also the Mercury, the game. That's the game, man. They're playing the game. So here we go. So goal-directed Punarvastu is a perfect match for these folks. They have high expectations. They're partly, they don't like anything that threatens their reputation. From this perspective, that's not silliness. They don't want to threaten their reputation. As less partners can sometimes work since they are so good at keeping quiet and keeping things underground. Okay, so the direct, blunt, honest approach to love can often lead to purchasing love, prostitution, uh, through therapeutic, uh, kind of therapeutic things for love. No nonsense, no strings, no hassles, just business relationships. They're not particularly emotional. They'll believe in fate and perhaps even soulmates, though they will believe in fate and soulmates. All the more so on Sagittarius side of things, where there's more hope, more broad expanse of light from the sun rulership of this nakshatra. And Capricorn, the light is coming from way up there on top of the tree, on top of the ladder. Venus brings a nice sparkle of light to Uttara Ashadha, something to accompany it to the morning. Venus accompanying the morning sun. Although getting caught with a prostitute can be a little more than embarrassing, at least they don't have to lose their dignity with the small talk of dating. They prefer to skip all the window dressing that typically gets relationships going. Scorpio on the 11th Capricorn's highlights, so they might have friends with benefits or other hidden relationships. It's hard to get a sexual relationship while maintaining respect and dignity, honesty, all these higher qualities of Uttara Ashadha. So the sexual creative animal of the mongoose, we can be quite ambidextrous regarding relationships. Men don't seem to be switch hitting, but the women in their life seem to be more bisexuality. Plug in. So some bisexuality and switch hitting sort of thing comes in into this to a certain degree. To plug in, I'm going to move everything over. So,
And it's like, with Venus being there as well, in a way, it's problematic because they're looking sure that like they're the best lovers or the best reputable lovers in a way, but it's like when you're in love or when you're in a relationship, you get messy. So these people might have a fear of getting into those realms, into those places, because it would maybe hurt their reputation. It would hurt their beauty to be
yeah,
that vulnerable, to be that exposed.
that's it. They don't want to expose themselves to any of that messiness. Uh, Dignity is kind of too important to them to a certain degree. So truth and trust are important, and they scrutinize everything. This doesn't mean these folks can't lie. That depends on so many other things. But for the truth, but for relationships, making some kind of agreement to the feeling of true appreciation, they need the truth and they need to be able to trust their partners. And that's again, they don't want any of that messiness. So they have to be able to trust their partner. Position of sun will make a big difference on the level of professional of the women and sisters in the person's life. A powerful sun will make one more powerful themselves. That women of life will be able to attain a similar, even higher achievement. So they can be involved in uplifting women's type rights here as well. Seeking to uplift them. More conventional on the Capra side, might prefer brand names, but not so much for the name. It's rather for the high quality thereafter. Things that will last, will develop its own character, like the originality and uniqueness of old things, beauty that is crafted by time and experience. They usually like architecture, temples, steeples, anything that brings their gaze upwards, like the star on top of the Christmas tree. They appreciate experiential intelligence, practical and pragmatic. Trust is made by action, one step at a time, and this kind of trust is a source of power. Global, international, blah, blah, blah. So we get some names here on the Venus side, not a lot of names on the Sagittarius side, but we do get Steve Jobs, we get some big players over there. Yeah, the dignity of global travel in a sense. I think this is sort of, we think Venus Uttara, especially on the Sagittarius part, it's almost like some of these beautiful airports in a sense. And they love that kind of thing. Places that are hubs, right? Gathering points where all the masses come together and then go. They come together and then go. And so that would be like airports, train station, bus stations, any of those kind of hubs all get involved. Plans of Buzz Aldrin, astronaut Noam Chomsky. Billy Idol. Yeah, here we get Bill Ash was fighter pilot. Seaborn Buckley was also involved in some of that transport type stuff. What was that Jim Carrey show about the spotless mind?
Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind.
Yeah, so trying to erase all of those bad memories in a sense, even. Because it got messy. They didn't like it when it got messy to a certain degree. Yeah, we'll get some LGBTQ, so you get some bisexuality. Also with this will come people who can work for gay rights and things like that as well. We'll have a Venus like this. There's Jesus, there's our Prince Edward again. Elvis Presley, a lot of musicians. It's amazing how many musicians have this. Lots and lots of musicians looking for that harmony. Maybe it's just maybe it's like a band with everybody trying to harmonize together to a certain degree with this Mercury or with this Venus. There you go. You got Mike Holiday down here. Some Agors, bisexuality, Agors. That's funny. My teacher calls me also an Agor. Yeah, because I just don't care. I do, but I don't, right? And that's almost, maybe that's a little bit of the Uttara Ashadha. It does and it doesn't in a sense. It doesn't want to be seen to be getting messy, even though they can be quite messy people. You see that with Tom Waits as well, Chris Rock, these kind of things, Susan Miller, a lot of astrologers with this placement as well. Bhakti devotionalists as well. I know a few. That's that singing. I know when I went through my Venus period, my Saturn Venus, that's when I started singing big time. Started my regular singing practice. So you get some of that bhakti coming on through this. Well, we're at the point where I just start jumping ahead. Jupiter was interesting. I talked about Jupiter earlier on, but here we start to see some of the names of these people, and a lot of them are quite very big people for the most part, but they're kind of brutal. We get Wayne Gretzky and James LeBron. Those two are like, the top of the top kind of in their field, and they're just so far beyond everybody else. Nick Loda was like that in kickboxing as well. These are the great ones, basically. They're just so far beyond everybody else. But Jupiter on the Sagittarius side, it's not so bad, because a lot of times these are common people who became great. A lot of cases, they're great because of their humility.
And it's exalted, right, in Sagittarius, or it's in rulership?
It's in rulership in Sagittarius. Yeah. And so it does fairly well. And so it's interesting how it goes from being in rulership and then crossing line into Capricorn. And the thing is, a lot of them are still leaders here, but here there is more of that using force to lead. That leading, using a little bit menacing, using their size, their bulk, their expansiveness to lead. It's like Larry Holmes, get Terry R. He was a biker. He was like, yeah, he led by threats in a lot of ways. Yeah, someone like Saddam Hussein as well, Barack Obama. The other thing with Jupiter and Capricorn, so to be a good leader, you need to be strong. You need to have structure and you need to enforce it. You need to have sort of rules and you need to enforce them. If you don't enforce, that's kind of Mars, you could say. Mars is going to have rules. Sun's going to have rules. They're going to be enforced. Everybody's going to toe the line or get out of here. Problem is when Jupiter's in Capricorn, the rules are open. They're very broad. It doesn't matter what the rules are. There's sort of a cultural relativism there. The rules are poorly defined. As a leader, he's kind of open. People are getting, they're getting a little bit there. Well, it's either survival of the fittest, is how you get your leadership by literally fighting your way to the top, or you get appointed. Right? There's no real clear guidelines for how to get leadership when Jupiter is there. The only clear guideline is really to be the survival of the fittest. You've got to be the top dog, in a sense. And so you see a lot of that, like someone like Saddam Hussein. It's really that process of elimination, but these people are sort of dirty. They don't really deserve the leadership positions. They haven't purified to get to that top position. They've taken it by force. And so anyway, so they get like guys like George Carlin. These people have usually absent father figures or no father figures. There's like they're living out on the street. It's like street sort of rules is what rules here. They've got no father figures. So out on the street, what's the rule? Survival of the fittest. That's it.
And I know like LeBron James, well, I guess it'd be interesting because Wayne Gretzky, prominent father figure. LeBron James, no father figure.
Yeah, well, on the Wayne Gretzky side, these people are also on the Sagittarius side. They'll be more likely to have those father figures. They're not, in a way, it's like, this puts me in mind of in regards to hockey or basketball. Again, it's that hub where everything comes back to. And so it might be the father, or it might be the goaltender, where all the pucks are coming in from every direction, coming into that net, I guess. Trying to make the goal, trying to be the great one, trying to be the best. But there is that sense. And so even the coach maybe might have been in there with the Sagittarius, someone who's in the center, sort of again, there's no direction. The direction is going out in every direction. Is what that coach is doing in a way.
And I feel Gretzky and LeBron James have both done that. Like Gretzky makes wine and he's done other stuff, and LeBron James has a taco company, like just these kinds of random things.
Yeah, well, there is almost a randomness to it.
Both coaches too, so
Yeah. And Jupiter and Uttara Ashadha does make good coaches, because they're the tough guy. They're that one in the middle. The coach has to take a lot. They've got anyways, you got all these kids to work with in a way. And there isn't a lot of direction. The direction becomes like, it's like Wayne Gretzky's father was like, his direction was like get up and get out on the ice, start training, train more, train harder. He wasn't giving him any sort of sense of morals, really.
that's where the absenteeism kind of comes in. It's like he was just a drug pusher rather than like a guide kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like just common sense is what Jupiter brings. There's no father figure that really showed you these things. And so you learned that partially on the street, and you used your common sense, used your street sense. And that's really what the Jupiter in Capricorn is this kind of street sense in a big way. So you see a lot of boxers, Larry Holmes, guys out on the street, trying to make it happen. Saddam Hussein, even Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe doing a lot of like street soccer and things like that. George Carlin completely just dissing the church, just running down all the church figures and things like that. So none of these people, there is a pope up there, but I don't know, you can look him up, but he's probably wasn't much of a pope. This is that sort of like, especially when we get to the fourth pada, This is Barack Obama. Imagine just like he's cool. He's chill. He's got up on his feet up on the desk. He doesn't care what everybody around him is doing. So everybody in the Democratic Party, all his guys during the Obama time, the corruption went through the roof because the boss isn't watching. He's just chilling, man. He's just like the dude, like Jeff Bridges, man. Like, what's your problem, man? Like, don't worry about it, man. It's they got it, man. It's good. So that's kind of that Jupiter, the door to leadership. There's nobody leading. There's no consequences to anything really, or no major consequences. There's going to be some, but they're not going to be really major consequences. So, but then you also get in this regard, you get a lot of kind of explorers and people like that, like big guys. They just push their way through. The Navy SEALs, Lindenberg was an explorer, Columbus exploring, really doing their own things, going out in those lands where there are no rules. You can just use your common sense. That's all you got. So this is Saturn in Uttara Ashadha. So there's going to be some friction between Saturn and Sun. Work ethic is going to be there. Consequences always going to be, if there was none before, there certainly are now. So then you get guys like Julius Caesar, you get these big, really tough leaders, Ray Kroc, really almost assembly line type things going on there. You get again these explorers, Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner, going out where no man has gone before. They're going out in a world where there are no rules. And the rules then become like Saturn is like live or die. That is it. That's the rule in a way. And so here's where you get really the harshest street stuff going on. Dave Toshi, the cop, like this, some geologists, a lot of military, a lot of sports guys also end up having this sort of stuff. Looking down at the women, few lesbian seems to be here as well with the women. I don't know if it's a duality, but with the men as well, I'm not sure. But certainly with the women, there's some of that. It's like, I think it's with Ansel Adams. With the Saturn here, the world becomes much more kind of black and white to a certain degree. There's consequences, there's rules, and there's not. There's so like this. There's things you can get away with and you can do, and things you can't. Yeah, and a lot of them have gone out quite physically out into territory, kind of forbidden territory in a sense like that. And a lot of travel and a lot of that street toughness is in here. Street rules of the kind of rules of the street, kind of play some role here. Let's have a quick look at the Rahu and Ketu, and then we'll wrap it up, because of course Rahu is going to be the boundary bender, the breaking of the rules, or the using of the ideology to get their own way. Turkey's kind of interesting, and Afghani sort of warlords. Western perspective, Dalai Lama is a bit of a warlord as well. They have their group, they have their crews. Navy Crockett, here's that again, that Rahu is really penetrating the boundaries, going outside of bounds, out of the territory. Can probably see some of that with sports players, out of bounds type stuff coming in. But Davy Crockett, Christopher Columbus, Robert Hand. So really, really doing Hans Christian Andersen, all his stories of these children going off into the forest kind of idea, going out of their safety zones, out of their comfort zone. Seems to be a lot of that here. Really getting outside of their comfort zones in a lot of cases here. Mob boss, wrestlers, railway bosses, really, really tough dudes here. Prosecuting lawyers. Kind of hard boss, Joseph Goebbels, military leaders, CEOs, quite a group of sort of top dogs. Yeah, Ketu here, we get some of the vineyards all over the world he has. Some big Brahmins here as well. Uttara Ashadha. I get a sense there's something with Uttara Ashadha as well. I think that gets connected with the Olympics. I always see those Olympic rings when I start talking about the circles. You know how they do those circles for the Olympic logo? I always see something like that involved. It's almost like this idea of like this universe is full of so many different heads, so many different beliefs in a sense. And so what Uttara Ashadha is, well, the ultimate kind of archetype of Uttara Ashadha is kind of getting the pure juice of all those beliefs in a sense. But ultimately we're dealing with all these different beliefs and different circles of groups and different all these different local cultures on the global level. So I guess we'll call that good. Been a few hours.
Good
Yeah,
class.
huh?
Good class.
Yeah, it was a nice one. It was a fun one. I enjoyed that. So
Yeah.
so Uttara Ashadha, we all know all about it now, and now we're moving into to Capricorn and Shravan next class. So yeah,
It's Emmett territory now. Finally, I've been waiting 6 months for this, you know? Like, geez.
yeah, we are in the new territory now. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, we're there. I should probably post Uttara Ashadha. It's the funny thing is, it's earlier I was working on a lot of like I was setting up that framework. And so that first part I do for classes, I was doing all that work on that stuff. And I haven't really gone back to any of that because
Yeah.
I've been down here working on the more specific placements and things like that. So
And you've been moving too a lot, like since. So like now you're finally like you're finally landed and like you're stable now, you know? So there's gonna
yeah,
be like this time where you can just chill and let the information kind of come out and the structure come out now. So
yeah, I can keep a thought in my head for more than
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
distraction. Yeah. So
There's
uh
value to that. Yeah.
pitter patter, time to get at her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you get news for your Indian visa? Your mom told me that you were gonna chill down in Red Deer for a little bit now.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll hang out here for a bit. I'll apply for the visa soon, but I don't think it's going to be a simple process to get it. I should have, and I'm kind of waiting. I want to make sure that I've been out of India for a full year before I apply. And it's right, I'm on that cusp now. I think now I'm probably good. Um, so anyways, yeah, it's going to take time. So I'm just going to chill out here.
Cool. That'll be good. Nice